Let's begin.
First, I'm freezing.
Yeah, it's cold. It's been cold all day. Have yours from last month.
That's Jason.
There's Jason. No, we were waiting for you.
Oh, I lost my hand or something. The cameras can't be that close to you anymore. Oh, I
Just said it wasn't students, yeah.
You're not the.
I'm so cold, like.
It's like balls.
That's so close.
Yes.
Everybody.
Please, I look much older on this side. Can you go to that side, please? At least that way. Actually, I know, I can go like this. Oh. I think someone sabotaged my chair every day. I don't know who's playing that now.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Roll call, Mr. Zlato.
George Andrews.
Present.
Rebecca Bear.
Present.
Ann Cotrillo.
Here.
Mike Cotrillo.
Here.
Jason Goldstrand.
Present.
Keith Parker.
Present.
Debbie Kulik.
Present.
Wayne Roner.
Here.
Rich Schlemus.
Present.
And I'm present.
Thank you. We welcome all of our guests here tonight, and just be sure you please have signed in on the paper that's outside in the hallway. An executive session was held on May 29th, 2025 for the purpose of discussing personnel and litigation, and an executive session was held this evening before the meeting for the purpose of discussing personnel, litigation, and negotiations. We need a motion to adopt the agenda for June 16th, 2025 as submitted, with the Board of Education reserving the right to add to the agenda and take further action on any items raised in executive session where immediate action on such items is considered to be in the best interest of the district.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of May 19th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, our student board reps are off to college. We don't have them tonight.
Very sad.
So now we go to our superintendent's report.
So I typically have a report, but I've decided to yield my time to Mr. Mirabelli. So that we can have a conversation about the budget and the board can spend time discussing that and deliberating that before we get to the vote. So Mr. Mirabelli, thank you for your service to our district and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much for having me. It's good to be back. I was just here a week ago presenting to the Finance Committee. We had a very robust discussion regarding the status of the budget, and I look forward to sort of walking through this again. Just let me share my screen so everyone can see it. We okay? Okay. Okay, I think we're up and running here.
We are
Oh,
not.
no, we are not
All
up
we
and
see is a
here.
beautiful forest,
All
but it's
right.
not raining in that forest. So we like
Yeah,
that.
let's go there.
Apologize. Let's do this. Okay.
There you go.
My apologies for that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Marabelli. I'm from School Business Consultants. We've been engaged to come on in and take have a second set of eyes on your budget and finances. And render an independent opinion on how we think things are going and provide you some recommendations and insight on where we believe you stand financially. But first, I just want to talk about a little bit of our process. It doesn't appear it's letting me advance this slide. Okay. I want to talk about our discussion tonight. So our process, I'm going to walk you through the things that we looked at and and observed. A little financial overview from maybe 10,000 feet. Salaries and benefits we want to talk about. PDE 363 charter school tuition calculation, which was a fairly major finding we had. We want to talk about the current year 24-25 forecast, next year's budget, and then some recommendations. So I will move through this pretty briskly. Please stop me if you have questions along the way. So our discovery process, we came in, we immediately had discussions with district administration and the business office team. We also spoke with some consultants, such as those in your health insurance trust and your financial advisors. We reviewed a ton of documentation, including collective bargaining agreements, bond documents, audit reports, AFR's budget, etc. We reviewed also current and historical accounting data, which we'll present some of that to you this evening. And we also did a detailed review of revenues and expenditures. So let's take a look at a financial and economic overview. First, I want to show you what we call the revenue performance budget. And this is available to you in a software called Forecast 5. And you have this, and we think of Forecast 5 sometimes as just a forecasting model to look forward, but there's also a very powerful data analytics tool. The nice thing about the source of this data is it comes right from the Department of Education, your AFR data. Right, so we're looking at audited data, historical audited data here. So not my information, it is coming directly from the state. So what we see here is revenue budgeted versus actual. And the takeaway here is you look year over year, you can see largely over time, you come in a little bit higher in revenue than you budgeted. Now, it's usually good news when you come in over budget in revenue, because that means that helps your fund balance or to offset some expenses which may have come up during the year that you didn't plan for. However, there are certain times when it is perhaps a bit of excessive. You can see maybe that 8.7% jumps off the page a little bit. That's largely due to COVID funds. But 3.63 back in 2019, that's a little more revenue than you would have expected to come in. And we can analyze where those were. But when a board is trying to examine where they stand, and perhaps they may have doubts on some of the numbers, we look at analyses like these to say, how accurate are we budgeting year over year? And we can spot trends and variances. Now let's look at the expense side of the equation. Now this has a little bit more distinct trend where we over time tend to budget expenditures higher and then come in fairly significantly under budget, right? So 2023 is a great example, coming in 5.04% under budget, which again, good to be under budget. I'm not sure when you're making, plans for the future and financial decisions that you want to be that far off every year, right? So there's some example here of, I'll use this term carefully, but there might be some padding in the budget somewhere in some areas. So we sort of targeted our approach to say, is there any padding in the current year budget and the 25-26 budget? And also, are we a little light in some areas too? So this analysis sort of informed where we were going to look, okay?
If I can just interject, so this slide reinforces what you've said, is that we have come to you as a district saying, hey, these are what our expenditures are going to be. We're going to have a deficit, but it was never realized because the expenditures were less. So this is just like a pictorial graphic to show what you're saying, and the history is true. We do see that there was a prediction of a deficit, but it was never realized.
And I guess a relevant point here is there is something that changed after this fiscal year, being 23, 24, 24, 25, and that is your accounting and budgeting software in your HR suite, and a fairly major one and a positive one, because as we examined your budgeting practices, namely salary and benefits, which makes up almost 80% of your budget, we see that your team is putting in the position, the employee, their exact salary as called for in the contract. And all of these items are coming across from the salary and benefit module, which is HR, into your budget directly. So there really is not a lot of room for fluff in the major parts of your budget. The same thing is happening in the benefit side, okay? So we gained, after seeing this and seeing your processes, we gained a lot of confidence in your 24-25 budget and 25-26 budget with respect to 80% of it salaries and benefits. So once we established that we were in good shape there, that there weren't extra positions, extra fluff, things of that nature in your 100 and 200 object being salary and benefits, we took our search elsewhere to see what else we can find and gain assurance with. So that's good news. We did gain assurance in the biggest part of your budget. But I do want to show another trend before we get into that. What we're looking at here on this predominantly pink and orange graph is assessed value by property type. And this shows about a 10-year trend in Monroe and Pike counties. And you can see that largely in Pike County, values have not appreciated over time. They're flat over the last decade. And then on the other side in Monroe County, and most of you are probably aware, we had a reassessment in 2020, and you can see the pink piece here, or light purple. Those are real estate, private, like residential homes, okay? And those we have been building. We have seen some increase in value there. But that has been significantly offset by commercial properties appealing their taxes and getting reduced drastically. So we have seen your real estate tax base erode over the last few years, and it actually is trending in the wrong direction, okay? And also, as we probably are all aware, we haven't had a tax increase to offset any of that over that amount of time. Millage rates, through some rebalancing of counties, there's a few ups and downs, but largely the rate has been unchanged. The small fluctuations are either due to the reassessment or due to just rebalancing between the two counties. Revenue trend, you can see largely the revenue upward trend, a slight upward trend over time, is driven by largely state dollars coming in. We haven't seen really, if you look at the state revenue, and the local revenue in the blue section, it was $100 million in 2015, and we were budgeting $100 million in 2026. So completely flat local revenue. And you can also see in the green section, we have expiring stimulus funds from COVID era. In the state, we do see an increase there thanks to the $5 million Ready to Learn block grant that was given to us this year, but we can't use it until next year, which was a unique twist on the tax equity supplement. So largely, the only material increase you'll see in revenue next year is that roughly $5 million. And that just so happens to offset the 5 million in ESSER funds, which are coming off, right? So overall, we are seeing a year-over-year decrease in revenue that we are budgeting. And we did make some revisions to your revenue, and we'll tell you about that in just a minute. This is a good way to kind of trend how you spend against other schools in the Commonwealth. This is spending per pupil, and we eliminate debt service and property acquisition and things of that nature, so we can take a look at your operation against districts of any size across the Commonwealth, larger than us, smaller than us. And you can see that the blue line is East Stroudsburg, and the spend there is $25,671 compared to CIU 20, who spends about $2,500 less per student, or 10% less, $23,153, and the state average is even less at $22,900. So that's just a quick and dirty way to say, how are we spending relative to other districts?
Do those districts have the same student mix that we have?
I can confidently say no, they do not. But if you're looking, you can pick peer groups in the software in the Forecast 5. Those are often challenging to define which goes in the peer groups. But across the Commonwealth, that is how you would compare. That's why I say it's a quick and dirty way
Right,
to.
that's why I just asked the question if the student mix is similar or is our mix different?
So you would have, more poor school districts, more wealthy school districts. You would have, all kinds of mixes,
Different learners.
So
different learners.
the IU 20 numbers, the 14 districts in the IU, so our neighboring school districts, the state average is all 500 school districts in the state.
Yes, it's a decent litmus test though, just to see where you're performing across the Commonwealth. You shouldn't make too many inferences from this simple chart, but it is just a benchmark.
I have a question. Why did you pick Colonial IU instead of say Pocono Mountain School District or a large school district like us versus?
Those are all of them all together, all the 14 schools within the IU.
Right, so he chose in our region, the IU.
I know, but why?
It's
Why
not the
that?
IU,
versus-
it's
Like
schools in the.
Valley.
It's all
in there,
14 school districts, it's the
Stroudsburg's in
average
there.
of the
Oh,
14.
the average.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, the
It's not
average.
CIU 20.
Oh, okay.
It's-
It's not, okay. It's
Yeah,
not the-
no, that, it's a great question. So it's the 14 districts that comprise of IU.
You took all 14 districts,
Correct.
okay, okay,
Yes.
I thought it was just the
Yeah.
IU's, but.
No, that was
that's
a good
totally
question.
different. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I explained that poorly. I appreciate the
Sorry,
question.
I
Thank you.
missed- I
Thank
missed
you.
it.
I should have clarified that.
Thank you.
So now I want to take a look at salaries and benefits, and relevant to the discussion of salaries and benefits is staffing and enrollment, right? So this chart is another great benchmark as how are you staffing your district as compared to what enrollment trends are happening. And you can see the blue line is your staffing, which is up over this 5-year period by 7.3%, while enrollment is down 4.8%. So they're trending in different directions, which means class sizes are probably getting lower. Perhaps there are more special ed, classes, things like that. But generally, you like to see staffing and enrollment trend in the same direction, not diverging like this. So just an observation on district-wide staffing versus enrollment there.
And if I can interject, in this current year's budget that we're proposing tonight, we will be down 9 professional staff and 3 admin. So we will be down 12 positions compared to this chart. So this chart will look a little bit different next year in that we are collapsing 12 positions.
Is this also hiring as opposed to, like just having the steady amount because we've had so many retirements? Do you know what I mean? So we've been doing extra.
This
hires
is
as well.
the number starting from 2019 as your benchmark year. And it's just straight number of professional staff and then number of students. Did I explain that right, Mr. Mirabelli?
Yeah, so with this is all positions, so
Okay.
this would encompass,
Okay.
district-wide in
It's not just
categories. But the
Correct.
professional staff does trend in a very similar fashion when we looked at it. And the beauty of Forecast 5 is we can strip that out and make this graph for professional staff only in like 30 seconds.
Hey, one more.
If I'm not mistaken,
I
didn't we?
could, okay.
Sorry, I
Go. I have a question. This Forecast 5, you're taking 5 years. 5 years is pretty much takes us into a bulk of the pandemic when our whole district was not even in a normal situation. Why do we go back 5 years in this cluster instead of 5 years when we were in our heyday or everything else to see a comparison as far as spending and staffing and student? I mean, this drop in enrollment is a lot because of the pandemic. A lot of people moved. And this happened. I've been on and off the board for 20 years, and it's a fluctuation. We saw a spike in 9/11, and then it dropped off. We saw a spike in every time we see a spike, it's,
So
And
all
then-
he's trying to do is paint a picture and give you information.
but,
There's
but,
there's
okay.
no judgment in any of this.
Okay.
So staffing and enrollment is usually something you look at. If you go back 10 years, it becomes almost irrelevant because the trend data, and as you said, right? So as somebody who's lived here my whole life, it differs, right? 9/11, there was a spike, COVID, there was a spike. It does not remain consistent, our enrollment, and it is very, very difficult to trend. This is just the last 5 years. It just happens that there was a global pandemic.
Just,
Just happens.
But point well taken, you know, certainly we can, yeah, I'm not sure how far the software goes back, but certainly that data would
Alright.
be available. But I do think it paints a pretty poignant picture,
So
here.
the other question I had too, during the pandemic, we hired several staff members, if I'm not mistaken, for learning loss, to recover learning loss, and we created several positions because of that. And they were paid for at that time with ESSER funds.
I do not know if salaries were paid through
I
ESSER.
think we tried to avoid too.
Yeah.
I believe that programs,
Mhm.
resources were purchased through ESSER funds, that we did not do personnel. through
Okay,
ESSER
well.
funds.
No.
But we did hire a bunch of paras and all that during that time for learning.
So absolutely, and we've seen that increase,
Yeah.
and what I would probably say is that instead of purchasing curricular programs out of your general fund, you moved that to ESSER
Correct.
and purchased personnel with those funds.
Okay.
And our review of your ESSER budgets, and financial reports over time does say, yes, they were one-time expenses largely. Which is great because you aren't left with as big of a cliff, as you may otherwise have. Also with these trends that, we do see, I mean, almost every school we work with did bring on more staff with, you know, during COVID. So not unusual to see an upward trend. The enrollment versus staffing trend is perhaps a little more pronounced than we see in other places, but you know, just information. Now, here's the salary and benefit trend that we have from your AFR data. And the last two columns are budget data. You can see a pretty smooth uptick over time until we hit the 24 to 25 year transition. And we can see that salaries went up $11 million and benefits went up around $8 million over that period. So nearly $20 million in salary and benefits. If you net out the PCERS and FICA, you're somewhere around 15 to 16 million increase in expenses year over year. Now, remember, I showed you the revenue graph where that didn't improve at all, right? Your revenue isn't going anywhere. And when we add on, you know, $15 million in expenditures, net expenditures, we need to find a balance, a way to balance that. So it's just kind of a preview of coming attractions, what we have here. So this was a pretty significant investment in your staff, and it did lead to a pretty significant increase in expenditures overall. And we didn't bring in revenue to fund that.
And
Okay,
this is not a judgment call.
yes, and
So-
actually, if we want to talk about, we did compare salary schedules to others in the current year, and they look very competitive at this point in time.
So we're not saying you did anything wrong with the recent teacher's contract. We're just saying there was an increase, just giving you information, no judgment behind it. Remember, assume positive intent.
Why'd you look at me?
I didn't, I'm sorry, I should.
So, and that's really the thing, like, I'm just delivering financial information, again, from an outside perspective. You know, looking at this from many different angles and at many different districts. So we do have this large increase in expenses without a commensurate increase of revenue to follow. Okay. Couple quick stats. This is relevant to the teachers. We went from 46 million to 54 million. So that whole increase that I just provided on the last slide was total staff. Professional staff is listed here. And also in addition to that, $8 million increase, well, in that $8 million increase was additional 15 FTEs or 15 more professional staff that were put on year over year going into 25. So that made the increase more pronounced year over year. We took a look at what the raises kind of look like throughout. And what we did was we took your salary schedule from the last contract and kind of moved it all the way through. This is one example of what next year's 25 to 26 salary schedule looks like. We like to look at what effective raises are in your salary schedule. We calculated them here. And a lot of people, their eyes jump to the big numbers on the page, but if you look at step 12, you can see that the people who are on step 12, the effective raise is not nearly as great as some of the raises that you see throughout the schedule. That being said, we did look at the increase year over year, and we can bring that back to you from 24 to 25, which was sort of that landmark investment. And we can provide you this whole analysis. We'll send you the whole schedule so that everybody can see what percentage is built in there, and you can know what to expect in future years, what you're going to be budgeting. That is one good thing, is with a contract that is out a few years, you can plan really down to the dollar with your current staff what the next year will look like. You can start budgeting for next year right now, which is a great thing. Another thing we came across in our discussions with your team here and with the Health Insurance Trust is that we've been underfunding, a combination of underfunding the Health Insurance Trust and having sort of a catastrophic year. And the catastrophic year in health insurance, you are not alone in this one. Almost every district we talk to is having a bad year, largely due to specialty drugs. We didn't get into the weeds with your consultants yet on what's driving the spend, but everywhere we talk, the general trend in healthcare is specialty drugs are driving up costs here. But the most concerning thing when we had that conversation with your Health Insurance Trust was you need to have 4 months of reserve cash to participate in the fund and be in compliance with the guidelines. We have fallen below that threshold. We're at 3.6 months. So that means we need to catch up. One of the reasons we've fallen behind is we did not pay for the retirees who are in the trust on the benefits throughout the full year. And they made us aware of that. And we did make that payment. And yes, it was budgeted for. We just didn't make the payment throughout the year. So your team made that payment. We are caught up on it now. We're still trending at a rate significantly higher than what we're putting in, which has led to a very rapid drawdown of your balance to where the point you only have 3.4 months left. So that's another concern that came. Now, some years you're able in bad years to have a health insurance holiday, we would call it, right? You can back off, even though you're having a bad year, you kind of back off. Well, you've kind of had 2 bad ones in a row, and that has depleted your balance. So there are no more holidays remaining. So the number that they gave us for next year, which actually was not as bad of an increase as we had expected, is the number you'll have to pay. Like, there's no wiggle room here. There's no, rabbits to pull out of hats with regard to healthcare. We'll have to pay that. Charter school tuition. So whenever we come into a district, we do like to check some error-prone areas. And one area is the PDE 363, the form that you fill out to pay your charter school tuition. For those who don't know, the amount you pay to charter schools is based on your own spend, specifically your own prior year budgeted spend. Well, when we came here, we noticed that there was a really extraordinary hike in cost to your charter school. And yes, enrollment was up, but it didn't make sense. So we looked at the form and we found that we were using 24-25 data instead of 23, 24. And what did we just learn about 24, 25? Expenses are significantly higher. So that means what we were paying to the charter schools was 1.5 million too much. Okay. So what we did was we corrected the form as soon as we found it. And we sent it out to PDE and the charter schools to look to recover those funds. And I don't have any reason to believe that we won't be able to recover them. So that's 1.5 million in the current year that will come back to us, right? So what we budgeted in the current year, though, was $8.75 million. We project that even after the 1.5 million comes back, we'll still spend 9.4. All right. So we're about 700,000 over budget, even after we bring those funds back in that area. Okay. So we're talking about budget variances. This is one you don't want to see, right? We under budgeted. Okay. Then we went to look at next year's budget, and what did we have there? Well, there was $9.6 million in your preliminary general fund budget. Then we took your current year enrollment and we used next year's rates, which were already calculated. And we, very simple multiplication, we came up with $11,050,000 is your spend for next year, absent some intervention of bringing kids back or possibly relief from the legislature on charter school tuition. So without any intervention, we believe this is what your number will be. The bad news there is it was an upward revision of more than $1.5 million to your budget for next year. Okay. Here's the trend over time of what the charter school costs look like. Very, very similar trend to many districts. You know, we see the spike during COVID. We see kids kind of starting to come back. And then, you know, they're back, heading back to the charter schools again. So seems like it's here to stay. I think our best approach is to hope and advocate for charter school tuition relief. And but you know, you can kind of see that trend over time. And we really do believe that will be your spend next year, given enrollment that is flat, you know, absent bringing kids back. We do believe that'll be the number. All right, 24, 25 projections. Again, so here's what it looks like overall. I understand you've had a few projections out of forecast 5 varying. You know, to be honest with you, we didn't even look into those projections. We took an independent look. We didn't use the same software that was being used. Forecast 5, I believe it was. So we took an independent view. We used our own model. We extracted your data out of your accounting software. So we're dealing with actual data. And we made our own sort of informed decisions based on all the discussions that we had with your team and administration here to come up with, okay, we are 11 months into this budget. What does the last month look like? And what do the accruals into the summer look like? Now, let me put my accounting hat on here and tell you why that became more complicated. Apparently at East Stroudsburg, I guess the procedure has been not to reverse entries from the prior year audit until the next year is over. What does that mean? So when we close the books in schools, we leave them open for at least 60 days. So we have to collect delinquent taxes. We collect EIT. There are subsidies that come in from the federal and state governments. We leave the books open, we identify them, and then we make entries in the prior year to put that revenue back where it belongs. Problem here is we're leaving the revenue in the current year too, also, right? So let's say we have $1 million in earned income tax that comes in after the fact. We'll have $1 million in 25, 26 and $1 million in 24, 25. It's recorded twice, not reversed. So when you receive your board report every month, and if you look at, say, your August board report, the first report you got for the year that I saw, the revenue that's there, there's a lot of revenue from the prior year that's still there. So you may have looked at this report and thought, well, we're doing all right. Okay. All right. And I will say that's also not super uncommon to see in other districts. But from an accounting perspective, it can be quite misleading, particularly if you have, say, $5 million in stimulus funds sitting there that you think is yours in the current year, which actually belongs to the prior year, and you can't count on that anymore. Okay. So we did have to back out those revenues to come to our opinion on what we think the deficit will be. And a lot of times, you can be conservative, you can be aggressive in your forecast and your estimates. We just tried to be accurate. We tried to not be colored by any letters that says, we'd like to see the deficit this way or that way. Like you can skew, estimates can always be skewed. And we tried to just kind of call it down the middle as we saw it independently. And we believe that in the current year, you'll come in somewhere around a $12 million deficit. Now, I can guarantee you it won't be exactly the number that I have up there, because if you put in a large purchase order for technology or a large repair comes up, that number will get larger. If we cut off, purchase orders and we don't spend any more in the current year, it could get smaller. Maybe you get a one-time revenue. It's not going to be wrong by millions and millions and millions of dollars, though. So we think that that's right about where you can expect to end this year. So I know you've seen a lot of numbers. I'm just saying this is an independent approach we took, and this is our opinion of where we think you'll end up in the current year.
So all that, I guess, extra that we thought we had in years previous, did we really not have it? Or did they actually move it back when they were supposed to?
Sure. So we looked at the past couple of years. So I can't, I've been told it has been the district practice to not reverse those entries until next year came around.
So my question was, so when we had surplus last year, did we actually have surplus or did we not?
Well, we did get surplus last year.
Or the year before?
40,000.
23-24 was basically a break-even year, $40,000 loss.
Even pretty much, or was it?
That's the.
No, so
those
the
are
au-
statements.
Okay.
The audited financial statements say that you lost $40,000 in 23-24. This is absent budgeting and accounting technique, like that was accounted for in the audit. I could tell you that you wouldn't be auditable if you didn't do that. Okay. What I'm saying is you're reporting during the year. I heard the concerns and I'm trying to explain why you may have thought something and I'm here telling you something else. Okay. And what I'm saying is the monthly reports you've received dating back to, I verified in August, had revenue that was not reversed. And that would happen everywhere. We just recommend don't publish the report until you reverse the entries, which means a lot of times our schools, we don't give them the report until November, right? So because it's not useful information if there's, say, $10 million in revenue there that isn't really belonging to that year. So we're just saying, hold on, don't publish the report. Reporting is good, but incorrect reporting, I would contend, is perhaps not.
So are you saying we shouldn't be getting monthly variance reports? I mean, that's really what you're saying, right? Because that would have been
Yes,
captured in that month of August. We didn't reverse it for the previous year. We think we're carrying it forward, right?
yes, that's what I'm saying. I would say the rest of your report, the treasurer's report, the banking information, the bill list, all of that should continue. I'm just saying, unless you have some mechanism to track those entries in August, when your books are still open, July and August is within that 60-day period, I don't believe we should continue to report revenue that is very likely to not be correct.
Would it be a best practice if it was shared to document in that report, money from previous school year of $10 million pending going in to close out the books and like put like a little asterisk, I guess?
It's just a reversing entry.
Yeah.
So here's the deal though, like just take earned income tax as an example. Berkheimer will send you, or whomever is your collector, will send you the report for July in August. On that report, it will show which revenue belongs back in the prior year and which revenue stays in the current year. The same will happen for August, so you will not know until second week of September what goes back. So it's not even feasible to reverse those yet. So it would have to be some really creative accounting and complex accounting to come up with this number. So my suggestion is either there's a disclaimer of some kind on the report, maybe just call it cash basis report, something like that. But if you represent it as a budget to actual and you know, say there's, again, that stimulus money is probably the best example I can find. It probably shouldn't appear there without a disclosure, in my opinion.
So you're recommending November at the earliest?
Typically, that's when it, right? So some wait until the audit is published, which is sometimes closer to December. You know, you don't really like to go 6 months into the year without knowing where you're at. So, you know, it's something we can talk about and try to help refine. Just want good, accurate information provided to the board.
Done here.
That's my understanding from the feedback I received. Now, again, I looked at,
I guess we could receive those reports, but not approve them. So they wouldn't be board approved, subject to audit until like the November board meeting or something like that. It would still give us an understanding of where we are spend wise. May not be on the revenue side, but at least we know where the budget is coming.
yes, it's largely on the revenue side. So the expense side, the payables function in this software reverses them right away. As soon as they're paid, they go back to the prior year. So that's not a concern.
Okay.
So, you know, we're happy to walk through and make recommendations on that. It's just something that the board has received and we just, and again, this does happen in other places. We just, when we hear folks are concerned about where they are, this is a place we look. So in 24-25, here's the sort of reconciling items, so to speak. We received $5.1 million in revenue for ESSER, right? So stimulus funds. The good news is 4.8 of that was one-time expenditures, right? So we planned accordingly. This would have been even tougher news if that was all ongoing use of the funds, right? Because we'd have another 5 million tacked on. We did have rental sinking fund payments of $5.2 million. I understand the forms related to your bonds to get reimbursement for your payment weren't filed for a few years, and the business manager came in and he had filed those forms and brought that $5.2 million in. Now, we cannot expect to see that next year or going forward because that's catch-up money. I think it was around 1.2 annually is what you get on that. On those rental sinking fund payments. And then the general obligation note, we had 5.9 million come in and 5.7 went out. I believe that was on the buses. We did buses there. So that was one time as well. So that's on both sides of the income statement, right? So, but all of those are going away. The one that is the reconciling item in your mind for next year is that 5.2 million rental sinking fund, which it's just not going to recur, part of your revenue decrease.
And that's part of the 199 million revenue, right? That's counted in the revenue side?
Yes, it's part of this number here. All three of those revenues are in that number and the two expenses are in that number as well. Okay, so now on to the 25-26 budget. Any other questions on the current year? Okay. So on to the 25-26 budget, we dug into revenues and we did recommend a few adjustments. Real estate transfer tax, we looked at a 3 to 5 year trend on all of these. Sometimes when you're looking at COVID data, you can't really use all of those years. So you're looking a little bit more at the last two. So real estate transfer tax we see as trending positively. So we moved that estimate up by 354,000. Interest, even though rates are going down, we saw the estimate for 2.5 million next year as a little low. So we brought that up by $250,000. admissions, we saw, a consistent trend slightly above where you were, so $7,500 there. Transportation, we took a look at what you're getting reimbursed this year to try to estimate what you'll get next year. So we had a good baseline to raise that up by $265,000. The section 1305, 1306, we looked into this, and that's for, I believe it's like incarcerated or migrant.
It's for foster, court appointed. So students who are court appointed to our district for various reasons.
Okay. So what we looked at here is there was $760,000 budgeted for next year, also in the current year. But in the current year, you can see we know what PDE is going to pay you. So where we budgeted 760,000, we looked at the payment which is coming from PDE, and it was just under $10,000, right? So that informed us that our estimate has been too high for the last couple of years. So we revised that down by $750,000.
Have we ever gotten $760,000?
No.
Yes, about 4 years ago. About 4 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly.
One time isolated, that would be a lot.
That's what I'm saying, it's a lot, that's a
Yeah.
big amount.
We used to 15 years ago have, and I forget the name of the program.
Shawnee Academy, Beacon School?
You can still, yes.
The Academy, yeah, the Shawnee.
And I wonder if that's just a absent-minded budgetary holdover from when we had that school that had however many.
But was that wasn't in East Stroudsburg
It was,
area?
It was.
It was.
No, I know where it was, but we weren't paying for that school, we were paying tuition to that.
Oh, no, so we had, under 1305, we had educational responsibility
Got
for
it.
those students.
So that's where that comes from.
But we would get the reimbursement.
Okay, I mean, that would make sense why it was so high and then dropped to basically nothing.
On for all.
Decade maybe?
Yep.
Yes. Inflo's lost.
So we're talking about an alternative education school that was within our catchment area. The people are delinquent youth.
Which closed years ago.
Okay.
There's a school down here too. The school
Pat.
down, huh?
Path, yeah,
Yeah, right.
which closed as well.
The
correct?
one
They
up,
closed also?
one up Sawmill.
Okay, so, whatever the explanation is, we did have kind of a lag in adjusting our budget expectations on that line item down. So looking at the actuals in recent years, it was obvious to us we had to bring that number down, which did increase your deficit. The final one, though, is delinquent property taxes. And this was pinged at $10 million for the last couple of years. And the $10 million, we see where the estimate came from. It was from, again, COVID, when people moved to the area and purchased the homes which had delinquent taxes on them and cleared the debts. That money came to you, right? And there was a 2-year spike of that happening. But then we saw it immediately drop back off, right? And now it's trending at about $7 million. So when you saw the preliminary budget last month, there was a $10 million figure in there. And we're recommending that we reduce that, and we have reduced it in their final budget by $3 million. So we don't see another way to kind of look at that number. It's just the trend. We have to adjust to the trend. Okay, so at last meeting, we recommended these changes. I'll just review what they were. Really, on the expense side, health insurance costs, we had to increase them by $577,000. That was just based on our conversations with with the trust and what they recommended we pay. And then the cyber charter costs, we just disclosed that we recommended the $1.45 million increase on the expense side. So overall, I mean, if you can read what I've been talking about, the budget adjustments that we made went in a different direction, right? So it made your deficit a little larger. So your deficit now stands, we believe, at for next year, $28.3 million. That's with no tax increases and no other revenue supplements, and also doesn't have any other cuts or anything in it. That's just kind of moving the numbers in areas where we saw estimates that needed refining, in our opinion. And, you know, we took an independent view at them, and that is the sum of the preliminary budget versus the adjustments that we made to it. You have any questions there?
So between 2 years, this year and next year, we're talking about $40 million.
Yes, if you add the 12 to the 28, it's roughly $40 million. So a couple recommendations. We already talked about the reversal of the prior receivables and payables. We'll keep the conversation going as to how we can really improve that in reporting and still try to get you information timely in those first 3 months of the year. We want to utilize tools available in Forecast 5 and data analytics. And what I mean by that is taking it, looking at those trends. It's very easy to look at trends and spot them quickly when you're using 10 years of historical data, particularly 5. So use that because it gives you a better big picture look, but also keeps you up to date. And you can really, also in the CSIU accounting system, if we use budgeting prep, which we are using, and your team's doing an awesome job with that, it's very easy to look at the prior 2 years and make quick adjustments, and it takes almost no time to get your budget more accurate. So I actually learned some stuff from your team because they're doing a great job with the software that they've only had for 2 years now. So kudos to them on that. We want to continue to integrate and refine the CSIU salary and benefit module. It's already very powerful. It's already very accurate, but there's always something you can improve and refine there. And what I'm talking about there is like, let's start on 26, 27 right away, and let's start that process because we have the ability to do so. You know, we recommend critically evaluating staffing needs district-wide. You know, Dr. Vitale was already discussing staffing changes that were made in the current year budget. One thing that came up, and we'd have to verify this with the Department of Food and Nutrition, was that you're paying for cafeteria monitors who are exclusive to the cafeteria. Cost there is about 600-ish thousand, give or take, to the general fund. Okay. You happen to have an operating surplus in the cafeteria fund, and you could conceivably charge those expenses to the cafeteria fund where I believe they rightly belong. And then you can then draw that balance down because I think you're in an excess funds position, more than 3 months of operating expenses. And then you could sort of solve a problem by bringing that balance down. It's otherwise hard to spend those funds unless you have a lot of cafeteria upgrades to make. But that's one thing we're recommending and helping you look into. And that can shift a cost burden off of the general fund, you know, at least $500,000 or so. And then we're recommending considering all options on the real estate tax revenue. We did have the lost revenue from a major tax appeal. I keep forgetting the name of that timeshare. Exploria. So that was a very significant hit. And then we do have, you know, the increased costs we talked about and the loss of ESSER funding. So what could those real estate changes look like? I was asked to quantify that in the Finance Committee meeting last week. So first I want to just take a look at the state gaming funds allocated to East Stroudsburg. So we had an increase year over year from the state of almost $1 million, 991,000. What does that mean per homestead or farmstead? That's another $97 that, absent anything, your homeowners or farm owners will pay $97 less annually.
Regardless of what their millage is, every house, if they own it and they've applied for it, $97, or is it based on the value of the home?
So you only have a few homes that are under the threshold of, I think it was like maybe 30 homes that were under that threshold. So the answer to your question is yes, it's a fixed $97, except those few homes. Okay. Okay, so now here's the rate impact analysis on both sides of the equation. So since we were just talking about the homeowner impact, let's start on the right side. A millage rate increase of 0% would lead to $97 less in taxes to, your homeowners. 2% would lead to, in Monroe County, $11.87 less than they're paying right now. Or in Pike County, $27.52 than they're paying right now. A 4% increase would yield a $73 increase in Monroe and $42.33 in Pike. And if you chose to go all the way up to the max 5.6% index, that would be a $140.71 increase in Monroe and $98.10 in Pike. And what is the impact to the district in revenue? You can see on the left, 0% clearly brings in $0. 2% brings in 1.85 million, 4%, 8.71 million, and 5.6% would bring you just under $5.2 million.
And your median's all about.
The median comes directly from, I apologize, I didn't put it on the screen. I think it was like, I'm not going to speak to that. It came off of your county tax report that gave us the median values. I apologize. I didn't memorize both of those to keep with.
And I'm assuming the median value is assessed, not property value.
That's correct.
But we're not sure what the median assessed value is.
I can email right after, but
That's
I don't have it with me.
That's fine.
It's I can tell you the Monroe, the larger of the two is on the RETR page of your budget report. It does show there. The smaller of the two, I just don't have with me. It's the real estate tax calculation report. It does show the median assessed value, but I can get that information shortly.
Just clarification, revenues, projected 24-25 revenues, you're saying those revenues are 199.5. You're saying our projected revenue in 2025 is 185,693, which is approximately $14 million difference. But yet, if you look at your trend of 10-year revenue, it's pretty much a flat line straight across. Why are we projecting a $14 million change in negative to our projected revenue when our 10-year average that you're saying is a 10-year average is not? I mean, it's
So if I may, so this slide here shows you $11 million coming off the books, right? ESSER funding, $5.1 million.
right.
Will not have that next year. General obligation note, 5.9 million. You will not have that next year. Rental sinking fund payment, 5.2 million. You will not have 4 million of that roughly next year. Those are all one-time revenues, which will be coming off the books next year, which lead to the decrease.
That's the,
Okay, but then what about the projected increase in our step increase in our equalization funding that we're projected to get?
That's included.
It's included?
Yes.
not the stat.
Not
No,
that,
the $5 million is in your budget.
but it will be stacked the following year.
We don't know that.
Okay, and the state budget is not in there either. We're not guaranteed a state budget either.
Well,
The governor's budget is not.
they give us a preliminary of what they believe, right? So school districts get that, and that's what we budget based on.
Yes. So what I would say is what is proposed at the state level is the largest increase that you stand to receive would be if they stacked another $5 million on your Ready to Learn block grant. If they do that under the current rules that you have this year, you'll have to defer that $5 million to 26, 27. So you will only get in this coming year, 25, 26, the 5 million that you received for the current year because they push it out 1 year. Now, if they believe that restriction, I'm not sure that that's what's proposed. Yes, you would receive an extra 5 million. I'm not hearing anybody expecting them relieving that restriction for the tax equity supplement. So we planned for the $5 million in tax supplement coming in 25, 26. And then we hope that in 26, 27, you'll get an additional 5. Certainly, we can use the 5 additional next year, but that's not what's currently in this budget.
And then just one more clarification on the last page, the revenues and all that other stuff. Again, you're saying 0%, the average homeowner in Monroe County is gonna see negative 97, they're gonna get 97. That's basically, they're keeping their Homestead Act. They're not getting any money, they're keeping what's given to them through the Homestead Act.
Correct.
So I'm saying relative to what absent an increased credit, right? So with the credit, so you're comparing
Correct.
absent the credit and with the credit. So absent the credit, they would have just gotten billed what they got billed, which is generally what they would have paid last year, but we equalized the millage, so it's slightly different. So absent the credit, they would have paid $97 more. But with the credit, their tax bill will actually go down by $97 and they otherwise would have paid absent state intervention.
So this is for the Homestead Act as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
and
what
then-
it's for? It's not for, if you don't have the Homestead Act, it doesn't make any difference.
Correct.
And then just to clarification, a 2% increase in millage rate, which is a 2% tax increase, is only gonna net the school district 1.9 million dollars. That's it. And then a 5% increase is gonna net us $5.2 million. That's it.
I have another question, excuse me. How many people are on the Homestead Act? I mean, percentage.
It's-
You got the,
The percentage I don't have, but I think there was about 6,000 or 7,000.
Anybody
how
has
many
a
people,
primary.
how many households was there in the district? Well, property, but,
Yeah.
because the Homestead Act, these numbers really, for most of the people in the district don't. do.
If you own a home and that's your primary residence,
And you have a homestead.
As long as you're a private resident and you apply for the
Homestead,
homestead.
yeah, but you
you
don't
get-
apply for the Homestead Act.
You don't get it.
The other
You don't get it,
issue,
which is about, you said there's 7,000 people.
But each year, the county sends out letters to the property owners who, and say, apply if you have not applied, so they give them the opportunity to
No,
apply.
I understand
And I
that.
would
but
hope
I'm
that
saying-
people take advantage of it if it's money that's going to be given to them.
Yeah, I understand that, I'm just saying that, but for the whole district, these numbers really don't mean a whole bunch to most of the people.
To them.
and the other issue I want to bring up is you're only talking homeowners. You're not talking about commercial property, which we have none. And now if we raise taxes, we're gonna have less commercial property because they're not gonna come here. They're gonna go to Mount Pocono. They're gonna go to other parts of the county. And guess what's gonna happen the following year? We're gonna lose more revenue. You know, more businesses are gonna request discount rates on their millage. And we're gonna lose more revenue.
You bring up a good point.
We're
The
not
point
gonna-
is that the development of commercial property is what is going to help the bottom line for all taxpayers. So as you see some commercial properties moving in, those are things that we need to kind of
But not
encourage.
if we increase taxes.
Well, I think if
I-
we do
I-
a moderate
I
increase.
I did some glancing at commercial properties. Some commercial properties in our county are paying like I was looking at, say, the property on the old rate price property on Fawn Road there,
The vacant
447,
one.
$70,000 in property taxes. $70,000 a year in property taxes. I think that was right. I mean, but now what's going to happen is if we raise it another 5%, there's an empty property that no one wants to buy because they can't afford it, and they're not going to even afford it again.
I think 5% is an ambitious number. Last month, I think I said, let's just say 2%, because it would help people be prepared. I've told people likely it's 2%. Personally, that's my personal opinion. But I think if you do something like that and it happens gradually for people, I understand, and I'm a taxpayer too, and my
We're all
family's taxpayers, right? Everybody is. But the bottom line is, we are looking at other things within our budget to see what we can do. And there are some surprises that we don't know about. But a small increase would be a prudent thought.
And I mean, Keith, you said it before, that the system is broken. They are asking us to pass a budget before the state passes a budget.
Correct.
So we are guessing
We are.
on what the state is going to do. If the state passes the charter school tuition reform, like they are saying might, it's $5.5 million, what I quickly estimate, that it would save us. It would cut that bill in half. But I don't know if they're going to do that. And we're not going to know even by June 30th, which is when we have to pass a budget. So you are being asked to make a decision and pass a budget with limited information.
Mhm.
And it's a no-win situation for you. So if you raise taxes and we get a better state budget and we don't have the deficit, you look like you have just levied more taxes on our families than you should.
We look like we should reduce it after that.
If you don't raise taxes and this all comes to fruition, then our fund balance will be woefully small, that we will not be able to do deficit spending for 26, 27, which means that we're going to have to start to look at programmatic changes and significant cuts.
Or refinance our bonds.
Or refinance our bonds.
And if we have to do that, we have to do that.
Yeah.
But even refinancing the bonds, I don't know if that would cut the budget gap. Because
would.
we're paying what, about 17 million on the bonds
15 million, yeah.
annually?
Yeah, annually.
So even if that there would still be a cost to that, right? It doesn't wipe the 15 million away.
Breaks it into smaller chunks.
Sure.
But we're done paying those off in 5 years. I hate to take
Yeah, I
on
know,
more
that's
debt.
the problem, is that.
I
Probably.
don't
And
believe.
probably at a higher interest rate.
I don't believe that to be true.
We
Look-
pulled a report that we got.
It's about 60, it's about 15 million a year.
Mhm.
Over the next, until 2030, and then after that goes down to 373,000,
Okay.
and then down to.
Yeah,
it-
that's the last
that
report
sounds
we
more
got
congruent.
from
Right.
our financial advisor. when we
Yes.
did
I
it
can
before.
share that with you.
Yeah, we do. I thought I heard debt free
We're
after.
just about.
Debt free, I mean,
Oh.
compared to $16 million, yeah.
Got it. Understood.
I just want to make sure I got these numbers right, because go back to Keith, and I just want to point this out. Last month we were given our budgetary, summaries of our options for last month. These numbers that we were presented with last month are significantly different than the numbers you're presenting this evening. And so, to give you an example, we're looking in the projected for 25, 26, projected revenue of $188 million. Now we're looking at a projected revenue of 185. So that's 3 million right there that we're already losing in the projected of having back at our general fund in the end of next year. And the other was the deficit, which was believed to be around $23 million. And this new deficit comes in cleaner at $28 million. And so that's about another 5 million. So that's $8 million already where we're at. And the part that bothers me the most is the projected for what we got last month, projected for the 24-25. I'm sorry, 24-25 was 17 million. It was anticipated that it was going to be 7 million. Now we're being told it's going to be anticipated at 12 million. I believe these numbers more so than I believe these numbers here. And I've been led askew, and I'm angry and frustrated by that, because now we have to make a decision that we had this information that we've been going with since we started the budget process, that we've been making those decisions based upon the budget process. And now at 0 hour, we're given the real numbers that we need to make this decision. And I think it's quite frankly, it's not on you, or it's not, I think it's just unfair for us to have to make that decision. And so I appreciate all the work that was done to give it did give us these numbers that are more realistic to where we're gonna be. And I think it makes the decision that much more difficult, right? But having numbers that make sense every year, we're gonna have $12 million in, you know, budget loss, and then we end up, oh, it came out after reconciliation, it was only $5 million. But we didn't actually reverse everything, so it's only, you know, 3 million. And so thank you, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the.
And we appreciate-
I'm not, and just my
Yeah.
statement to you is, I'm not saying you're saying the wrong
No,
number.
no, I just.
I'm speaking out of frustration and of it all, okay? And
Yeah.
I appreciate your presentation. I was not second guessing your.
Didn't take it that way for a
When I'm
moment.
asking all these
Didn't-
questions.
Not even for a moment did I take it that way. And now, it's not lost on me that this is some difficult news that we're talking about here tonight. And again, you know, it's information. We want you to have the best information possible. We're giving you our professional opinion of where we think you're gonna end up. You know, again, some things could break your way, some things could go the wrong way, but this, based on what we have and what we've learned, is where we think you're at.
And I have to tell you that Jim and Joe have really done a deep dive in a short amount of time. And they have called me several times. One was right before Sal's graduation, and they were breaking some of this to me. And I literally said, I just can't take any more. Just allow me to graduate our kids and enjoy tonight, and we'll talk on Monday, please. Because this is not good news, and we knew that you're coming with some trust issues about what the budget has been, which we took note of those trust issues, because there have been projected budgets that have never actually been realized. So you shouldn't trust. But I can tell you that the process that Jim and Joe have gone through with our business office, I mean, our business office has been incredible at getting information. And the level of detail that they have, like, I have sat down with our business office and gone line item by line item of all 1,200 employees and 2,000 positions in our district. Line by line, they know it. And Jim, I think you attested to that before.
Yeah,
but
if
like-
I could be a little more specific about what line by line means. No, when Maggie's saying line by, like, a line in your budget could mean an account code. But if you dug into your budget, say special ed tuition, you would see student number, you would see where that is going, you would see where the placement is and what the estimated cost for the year is. And there might be 100 line items in one account code. Same, like an elementary teacher in a building. You're gonna have like 40 teachers sometimes in one line item, and that's just for salary. And then you have a similar one for health insurance. And your team is putting all that in there. And that's where we quickly gained confidence in that chunk of the budget. Because you just, there's not fluff there. There just isn't. And we didn't find it, and the trends don't show it. So 80% of that budget plus that professional service piece that they're adjusting the trend constantly. You know, I'm getting a call from Matt, hey, do you mind if we move this by 5,000 because we just found that? Like, this is the level of detail your people are at. Okay. We took a look at some, the bigger estimates that we thought really didn't make sense to us after we got confidence on the detail. And we found, and we've laid them out for you here, is, you know, in our opinion, this is where the number should be.
So on the 24-25 one-time revenue expenses, there are 10.5 million, let's say, in expense this fiscal year that we're not gonna see next fiscal year. But we're actually adding $12 million in next fiscal year over, right? So I guess in this fiscal year, we have the ESSER funding, which is going away, and that bus purchase, which is going away, right?
Mhm.
That's $10.2 million or whatever, $10.5 million that are not gonna be present in FY 26 budget. But there's gonna be $214 million in FY 25-6 that we're spending. So that there's a $12 million increase basically
Mhm.
over last year. Is that what you're saying to us?
Yes. So a few of the items, mostly salary and benefits is where that increase is. And you can see that the increase is actually smaller than it should be. You see, we're going from 86 to 88 million, so there's 2 million. The difference, why that's not a bigger percentage is because of those less positions that we're talking about
Right.
budgeted for next year. The benefits, I think, are up by, I can't get that here, but it's about, that's another couple of million there,
That's only 2 million,
right?
right? So you're presenting us with a differential of $2 million, basically.
Mhm.
Where's
So-
the other 10?
Yeah, but- so they.
No, that's,
No.
I'm just talking about expense.
Right, so we have health insurance going up. Now, the 500 and some thousand that you
500?
saw, well, that's just what we
That's
increased it over the
over,
increase.
Right, so last year
Right.
versus this year, that's $500,000, so now I'm at about 2,500,000.
Mhm. Now you have a $1.3 million debt service payment coming on for the buses,
Which we knew, okay, yeah.
okay? Let me just pick out charter school increase from 8.7 to 11.
That's.
Maybe. Right? I mean, that's what we're projecting.
Well, I mean, you're asking me to
Right, no,
reconcile
I
the
understand.
years,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
So there's another 3.5 million, give or take, 3.25. So
Well, yeah, no, if we're our preliminary budget was 9.6 and that's 11, so that's $1.5 million, right?
well, but we're talking about the 8.7 budgeted versus the 11.05 budget. You're
Right,
asking me to reconcile the 2 years, not the 2 versions.
right.
The 2 versions I've reconciled here in plain.
Right, so, okay, so now we're at 7 million.
Special ed costs, I can tell you, went up pretty comfortably. I don't have that right in front of me, didn't call that one out, but there were already increases built into this budget that made sense to us. Being salaries, benefits, services, tuition to not just to charter schools, but inflation throughout the budget, what we see.
Mhm.
Well, the budget was 199, then versus, the budget was 212 versus 199, that's 13.
Right, no, but
13
that's
million right
the,
there.
what I'm doing is I'm looking at this year's projected at 212 million versus next year, next year's budgeted at 214. We're losing $10 million, like 10.5 million dollars due to ESSERS and that bus procurement, but we're adding another $12 million.
Which makes 24. Is you're saying.
No, it doesn't make it 24 million. It's just that, yeah. I'm just trying to find that reconciliation in there. I mean,
Say it one more time for me, Rich, because I'm looking at the 24-25 expenses.
right, you're
At
24,
212,
212, correct.
and then I'm looking at the 25-26 at 214.
Correct.
So there's a $2 million difference.
A $2 million increase there, right?
Yes.
But we're removing $10 million that we won't see from this year because it's a one-time expense, right? So we filled that back in with another $10 million worth of stuff. You know, and only 2 million of that is salary increases. Only $1.5 million is for the difference in healthcare. And so that's $2.5 million out of that 10, right? So now,
Where's that other eight coming from?
where's that other 8 coming from? Now there's $3 million here, there's $2 million there. I'm wondering, is there a way to tighten the belt in a way to kind of cinch that a little bit?
And we keep saying healthcare, we are self-insured. We have stopgap insurance. We pay for stopgap insurance for larger claims. You know, a normal, I'm not saying, I hate saying that, let me correct that. If I have health insurance, I'm putting personal insurance, I say I might be putting $2,000 a month into my family's health insurance every month. It's good. And then there might be a 20% increase, so I have to put in more. But our health insurance is based on actual claims. So we don't have a crystal ball. Okay. And the 3.6%, if I recall over the years, we never funded our balance completely. I don't think any school district in the history of the trust has funded their balance completely. I mean, years ago, our district was funding less fortunate school districts with our contribute, because it's a trust, it's a pool. We're putting into the pool and people are taking from it. So of course, the trust is going to say, we need more of your money because they're lacking money to pay their bills. You know,
But it's our experience modification,
Yeah.
our experiences that are causing it to be higher.
well then, but there are, oh,
But we always had the 4 months paid in there all the time.
no, we didn't always have 4 months.
Yeah,
No,
we
we
did, we took holidays too. Yes,
Sometimes we had
did.
6 months.
Yes, we
I'm
did.
I'm
Yes, we
serious.
did.
Let me get,
Yeah, we did.
let me go through my notes
So-
from years ago.
All I would say to that is, I hear you. The projected gain loss in your health insurance this year, even after we fully fund what they said, is $2.4 million. We signed up to pay 24.6 in contributions. The projected expense for the year is $27 million. So it's $2.4 million behind, right?
Okay.
So we will have lost in our fund, which is the result is dropping below that minimum threshold. Right, and what happens is, yes, we are self-insured. Yes, we do have stop loss. But when you have things in the market like certain specialty drugs, and I'm not speaking specific to your history here, but there are drugs that are $40,000 a month. And once the stop loss insurer learns about it, they do what's called a laser.
Right.
And they say, you're paying the full bill up until $900,000 or $500,000. So that's 100% your risk. So there are these things in the market. They are becoming more prevalent, and it is reflected in your spend.
I could tell you my Humira without insurance is
Right.
16,000 a month.
I get it. I get it. I self-insure myself for my medicine. I get it. But there's got to be ways we can fix that as a district in education of our employees to know their healthcare. I know when you get HIPAA, you can't do things like that, which is another thing you can't do. But give me an example. I just throw it on the table. Years ago, when my wife worked for the district, we were insured. I did have insurance through the school district when my wife worked here years ago. And my daughter went to the hospital, and the hospital billed the insurance for $14,000 for a visit. And when I looked at the bill, being the frugal school board member that I was at that point, knowing that we're gonna have to pay that, found out it was really misbilled, and it was really about $10,000 more than it should have been. And guess what? The insurance, we were gonna pay it. And I said, no, we're not paying that. And the doctor looked at me and said, who are you? And I said, I'm the, and sure enough, they readjust the bill. But maybe we need to educate our employees and say, we need you to help us look at your bills and help us. Because and most of our employees are taxpayers too. That's the other thing. Most of our employees live here, and they're going to be burdened with it too. It just pains me with the average resident in our area that already in East Stroudsburg Borough got a 29% increase in their taxes already.
So nobody is excited about this decision. It pains every single person on this board. None of us want to say we're raising taxes, we're levying taxes. Nobody wants to do this. Like, nobody's super excited about this meeting. So just, Keith, you're not alone in it, but it's a difficult decision that you have to make as school board members. And I just want to make sure you have as much information as possible and you're making an informed decision.
And one more question. The say 4%, like just say 2% increase. You're saying it's going to be $12 less per the median household. Okay.
That's
Homestead household.
Okay, I'm just saying the homestead house. Okay, let's go to the 4%. Simple. Let's take out of the homestead act there. Let's do $73.35 more per household. Are we saying we know that's an accurate number?
That's the average.
The average.
Could
Well,
be-
the median.
Well, they less, they'll pay more.
It could be less, it could be more.
It could be
depending
more.
on the value
Could be a
of
lot
the
more.
assessment.
Certain home, it could be a lot more, yes.
We're talking earlier.
That depends.
Commercial will be.
And commercial is going to be a lot more than that.
Yes.
That's what I look at. That's what I look at. I don't look at, I mean, I care about the residents of our community. Maybe a cup of coffee, you're talking a cup of coffee a day. If you had a couple cups of coffee this week less at Dunkin' to pay for that increase. But how is the $70 to $200,000, why is Exploria going to us? Because their taxes are high to begin with. They're trying all these resorts, what few resorts we have left are fighting us. And then And then
Alright,
we lose
I
more
wanna-
business and we lose more revenue.
And I agree with all that, and as a superintendent pointed out, this is not an easy decision.
I get it.
But one of the things that we have to think about, in my mind, as a board member, why I'm here, is for the education of our students and for the programs.
And to be
and-
fiscally responsible to the taxpayer.
And of course we are, but we have been. And we unfortunately, as Jason pointed out before, have been misinformed. You know, pretty much through the last 2 years. And prior to that, every budget that we have seen has never come in on target. And actually,
Well,
they were
right.
always, let me finish, they were actually always above. And so we've kind of gotten into the mode of, oh, well, you know, the budget's never right, but we're gonna get 8 million when it finishes. And then all of a sudden, last year, you know, we pretty much came even $40,000, you know, dollars less. And now this year and next year, we're at these projections. And granted, there are things that could happen in the state, you know, to, you know, change all of that. But I would rather levy the tax, unfortunately, but I would rather levy a tax and then take that back if the money, you know, give refunds, et cetera, if the money comes in from the state, than to next year be in this seat and say, I have to let teachers go, I have to cut programs for students. Like, that's the decision that we're ultimately making when we're talking about taxes. Yeah, ultimately, you know, we're here for programming, we're here for students, we're here for what we can offer them. And I don't want to be in this position next year saying I have to cut things that are going to hurt students and families as a result of that. And that, I mean, and ultimately, that's the bottom line of what we're looking at when we are discussing budget.
Are we going to reports?
Shall we move on? Anyone have specific questions?
Reports.
Mr. Morelli.
We still have all. the-
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Back to this discussion.
Thank you
again.
so much.
Thank you.
I know, Deb.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
for making it a long presentation for you.
No, I appreciate the questions, gentlemen.
Well, okay, we move on to reports, and first we start with Monroe on CTI. Jason.
All right. The MCTI Joint Operating Committee met on Monday, June 22nd, 2025, to discuss finance, curriculum and instruction, student activities, personnel items, progress of the conference center, and school safety. Mr. Zazzo opened up the meeting by announcing that 95% of the students scored advanced on their NOTI exams and that all students will be graduating with certifications. The JOC approved the payment of invoices and investment information. We moved to approve the planned service agreement with Johnson Controls, the workers' compensation insurance renewal, the life insurance renewal, and the pest control service renewal. We also recommended approving the following school priced lunches for next academic year, being $1 for first student breakfast and $1 for first student lunch. Additionally, we also approved the declaration of precision machine equipment, the building risk coverage insurance renewal, and the U.S. Security Statement of Work Operations. Regarding personnel, we accepted the resignation of cafeteria monitor and our social studies teacher, and also unfortunately accepted the retirement of our executive secretary, Deborah Shula, who will surely be missed. Several new staff appointments were made, including carpentry instructor, automotive technology instructor, a school safety and security coordinator, a social studies teacher, and an ACE instructor. And finally, we bid farewell to Dr. Conrad as the superintendent of record. The incoming superintendent of record will be Dr. Curry from the Strasburg Area School District. The next MCTI joint meeting will take place on August 4th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. The Colonial IU report should be me. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the meeting, so I will have a really long report next month. And next would be property and facilities. Wayne?
Okay, property and facilities meeting met on June 4th. The project updates starting the week of June 9th. Number one was the JTL flooring replacement with Cope Commercial. That's scheduled to begin. JM Hill project for the asbestos abatement, flooring replacement, and gym floor repair to begin. Resica School flooring replacement is scheduled to begin. North Auditorium light upgrades, committee was informed that the district has received the order and will be a summer installation. JTL Auditorium seating project will start in June and end in mid-July. North Water Tower generator will start sometime this summer. Don't hold your breath, Jason. ESC fire sprinkler system has a proposed pre-bid meeting scheduled for June 24th and a July bid opening. Discussion on generator replacements for the Bushville Elementary School, Resica, Lehman Intermediate School for the 25-26 school year. Items requiring action. Motion was made to recommend a notice to proceed for the North Campus Transportation Edition. Motion was made to recommend that Keystone Fire and Security install the boardroom audio visual system replacement for $101,460. Motion was made to recommend that Integra One install the JTL IP phones for $24,469.20. A motion was made to recommend that Applied Video Technology install North High School auditorium projector screen for $30,524.11. A motion was made to recommend Train Energy doing an energy assessment on our school district properties. Motion was made to recommend payment of CHA invoices for the North Campus generator replacement, JTL partial floor replacement, and boiler and water heater replacements. Resica School for the partial floor replacement, JM Hill for partial floor replacement, and the East Stroudsburg Elementary fire sprinkler replacement for the design phase. Finally, a motion was made to recommend payment to Munn Roofing for $26,235 for the North Natatorium roof repair. Our next meeting will be on July 2nd at 5:30 here and via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. And the Education Program Resource, Jason, I believe you'll be taking that one too.
I will do my best to meet a satisfactory level from the
Thank you,
chairwoman
Jason.
of the department. We'll do our best.
It's to follow.
I know, not this one.
Yeah.
And again, of course, Keith knows this is the most important committee.
Yeah.
Just want to point that out. All right, the Education Programs and Resource Committee met on Thursday, June 5th, 2025. I'm jumping ahead at 5:30. We began by acknowledging the North and South Salutatorians and Valedictorians. I'll do it again tonight. Imani Quarterman was the North Salutatorian, or Salutatorian. Teo Melissa was the valedictorian. And from South, Carl Ludwig was the salutatorian and Malta Parker was the valedictorian. Congratulations to them and all of our graduating seniors. The meeting then moved on to several important discussions and presentations. First was the data warehouse and analytics by Mr. Snyder. He discussed two software options that were Linkit and Frontline. After his presentation, which highlighted why Linkit was a superior choice for the district, we had a detailed discussion about its integration and implementation moving forward. Mental health, next was Ms. Jones presented us with mental health software for our district. She emphasized the importance of the ongoing need for student mental health support, noting that there have been approximately several thousand SAP referrals in the past few years, which shows a great need for the software. Two options that were presented were Gaggle and Cartwheel. For those of you who weren't there, I said Chartwheel the first time. With a recommendation for the latter, it was clear that after the presentation that Cartwheel was the better choice for the district. We then discussed restorative practices with Dr. Pipperato. We were truly fortunate to have in our district someone who was as knowledgeable on restorative practices as Dr. Pipperato was. With over 25 years of experience, she will be missed after her retirement, but she has set us in the right path with the software the district will be moving forward with. On curriculum reviews, we had our first look at the curriculum read-throughs for mathematics 9 through 12, and there were the leveled classes, which were asked for. The science curriculum for grades 6 through 9 with the updated steel standards, and elementary science for grades 5 or K through 5. We also discussed the second look course curriculum for world language and course plans approved by the Office of Curriculum Instruction for the intermediate school math, which was grades 6, 7, and 8. There were discussions regarding elementary science resources, specifically the HMT into science, and a very clear, detailed presentation and discussion about the elementary reading resource called 95 Group. This reading resource will aim to fill in the current gaps in the elementary reading with regard to phonics. The EPR committee recommended over 14 different items for consideration to the finance committee that you will all see. Those recommendations have made it to this evening's board agenda. And before we adjourned, Dr. Hallie took a few moments to express her utmost gratitude to Dr. Preparato, presenting her with a small token of the district's appreciation for all of her service and cookies. Our next meeting and cupcakes.
Well, you already have a
Our next meeting will be held on August 7th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Jason. Okay, Finance Committee, Rebecca.
So the finance committee met on June 9th, and we heard the same presentation that you guys just heard on our budget, and we too were very taken aback by it as well. We'll be moving forward. You'll see AZZ Power Sports, 2 Hisense 60 Sector 450 UTVs, which are being paid for in full by a grant from St. Luke's. You'll see point security open gate metal detectors also being paid, the majority of it by a grant, 248,903 is a grant and 62,225.75 by the district, as well as iPads 14 to be used with the metal detectors in the amount of 5,621.30 in a grant, and the district will pay 1,405.33. You're going to see, let's see, the audiovisual system replacement that Mr. Roner mentioned, as well as the North Site Transportation Building. The bid results for the boardroom audio and visual, with Mr. Roner also mentioned the JTL iPhones as well that he mentioned, the North Auditorium projector, screen applied video technology, the train energy assessment and analysis agreement to do an energy assessment, as well as the floor replacements, generator replacements, sprinkler replacement, and boiler and water replacements, as well as the recommendations from the Education Programs and Resources Committee. And those were as follow: to approve the purchase of HMN products for a K-5 science program. Recommendation to approve the purchase of Carnegie Learning products for French. Recommendations to approve the purchase of Wayside Publishing for the German program. The recommendation to purchase of Vista products for Spanish. Recommendations to purchase McGraw-Hill for consumer math. The recommendations to approve the purchase of McGraw-Hill for business courses. Recommendations to approve Pearson's products for some other business courses. Recommendation to purchase Cengage products for select business courses. Recommendations to approve the purchase of Linkit. Recommendations to approve Cartwheel. Recommendations to approve Restorative Practices software for K-12. And we're doing package B. Recommendations to approve 95% group. And our next meeting will be on July 14th,
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
here and via Zoom.
Okay, and last but certainly not least,
Oh, gosh.
Heath and Policy.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Tonight, we had an exciting policy review committee. We had a guest in the audience. Thank you, Ms. Ballmouser. for being there. Appreciate you being there. Sorry. We have some items to be put on the, we're asking the board to authorize and direct the following items to be put on public for public review during the month of June, subsequent review in July's meeting. We're looking at policy 312, evaluation of superintendent, assistant superintendent, formerly the 312 superintendent. We're adding the assistant superintendent to that policy. We're new policy 313, evaluation of employees. And then we're asking to repeal the old policy 313, policy 313.1, policy 3.3.2, policy 3.3.3, which are all were all incorporated into that original 3.13 new policy. We're also asking approval of 316 non-tenured employees, formerly non-certificated employees. Policy 327, management team. It's a description of management team. Our management team, you should read it. It's really good. 328, compensation plan, salaries, formerly compensation plan. And by doing so, we're repealing 328.1 because that's going to be incorporated in the 328. And I think that's it. Our next meeting will be that's tonight. Our next meeting will be July 21st, 4:30 here, and looking forward to meeting new and exciting people.
Thank you, Keith. Okay, we now have public participation. I do want to add that there will be a second chance when we do make the motion for the tax levy for public participation. But for now, is there any public participation? Anyone online?
Anyone?
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Any unfinished business? Okay, then we'll move on. Motion to adopt, amend, or repeal the board policies as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? A motion to approve the attendance of George Andrews, Rebecca Baer, Ann Catrillo, Mike Catrillo, Keith Carcutt, Debbie Kulik, Rich Lamus, and anyone else?
Anyone?
You let me on
George? Okay, and George, at the, anyone else?
George.
Oh, George is on it, I'm sorry.
George.
Sorry, maybe I didn't read it, I'm sorry.
that.
Okay, so anyone who's not there, we have everyone?
So
Okay. Any questions? Oh, any second, rather?
just for the record, we are not staying at the Kalahari. We are driving back and
Yeah.
forth. We are
Correct.
saving
Yeah.
the taxpayers' money by doing so.
Yeah.
No
Absolutely.
way.
And you can come to.
And we are not going in the water.
We have a second. Do we have a second?
We have a second.
Second.
Second. Any questions? And we are not going in the water park.
No.
No,
No.
I have no desire to go in the water park. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the attendance of Dr. Margaret Vitale at the following conferences.
So, second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the following delegates that we need to fill in to attend the 2025 PSB Delegate Assembly Business Meeting to be held on Tuesday, October 21st at 2:30 p.m. at Kalahari, and I'm assuming we can send 3 delegates.
I would like to be.
I wouldn't mind being there.
All right, so we have Rich,
Unless someone else wants to take.
Keith,
Yeah, it's after it, right after it.
I can go.
okay, Rich, Keith, and Rebecca will be attending as our delegates. Right, so
So
we would
moved.
need
Second.
second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to improve the following curriculum in accordance with the recommendation of the Education Programs and Resource Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the settlement agreement between the East Stroudsburg Area School District and the parents of the student with case RSA 202-506-16A.
Motion.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the tuition agreement between the East Stroudsburg Area School District and the parents of the student with the case TA 202-506-16A.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion that the directors of athletics and activities be authorized to approve overnight accommodations for student athletes and or full teams representing the school district for PIAA, PMEA district, regional, and state level competitions during the 25-26 school year if the site of the event is deemed to be a great enough distance to warrant an overnight stay. This is necessary should any student or team qualify to participate at such events between regularly scheduled board meetings.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the 25-26 student athlete expectations and guidelines, the athletic handbook as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the agreement to participate in the 25-26 Pennsylvania School Board Access Program.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
This is just to participate. How much we're gonna get, correct?
Sorry.
Correct. Okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the recommendations to modify expulsion requirement, agreed upon expulsion, waiver of school board hearing and release agreement for the case listed in substantially the same form as presented at this meeting, contingent upon the receipt of any manifestation determinations indicating the infractions were not manifestations of a disability where applicable, subject to final review by the school district's administration and legal counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to authorize the district's participation in the Monroe County Community Partnership for Gun Safety Youth Survey.
Motion, second.
Second.
Questions?
This is the one that we had the presentation on a couple months ago by Dr.
Right.
Lino.
Yeah.
Correct.
Just confirming.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the agreement with Karen Bukowski as presented as Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services of the East Stroudsburg Area School District effective August 18th, 2025 through August 17th, 2030.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And Karen is with us today.
Congratulations.
Take a bow, Karen, welcome. And we're very excited to have you joining us. Thank you. Motion to approve the agreement with Benjamin Brenneman as presented as Director of Human Resources of the East Stroudsburg Area School District effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2030.
So moved. Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And Mr. Brenneman is there.
Congratulations.
We look forward to you serving in that role with us. Thank you. Then we have a motion to approve this.
You keep going.
Okay, motion to approve the settlement agreement for employee 9254 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the following memorandum of understandings.
So
They're
moved.
listed there. Not here, if there's any
Second.
second. Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the notice of charges for employee 3612, having concluded that the charges are sufficient to support termination.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On the next one, just a change on page 8, number 20. James Ware is listed as a co-chairperson for English. That was a mistake, should just be chairperson. He's not co-chair, he will just be chairperson. So with that, motion to approve the employment actions listed in accordance with the associated applicable policies, procedures, and contractual agreements.
Second.
Second.
Questions?
Yeah, I need to abstain on double E, page 16.
Okay,
I have some abstentions too. I'm just finding them. Hold on one sec.
I'll pop in real quick. I have an extension on employment, section P, item number 14.
Had them saved. I'm abstaining from the girls soccer coach at North as well as the girls assistant varsity softball coach at North. Not sure what number that is, but that's what it is.
Okay.
okay.
Got it.
And I like to welcome Ann Morton.
Well, we haven't done it yet.
Oh, well,
Well,
she's on here. Oh,
Yeah,
after
we-
we haven't-
You said yes.
Okay, so,
Yes. You- we
sorry. I get
Did
it.
all the yeses.
Okay, any other abstentions or questions? Okay, and I believe we had our second, right, on that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so then all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Keith,
Welcome, Ann Morton.
welcome, and
We're
we're
excited.
nice to have you with us.
So if I could just take 10 seconds, and I know we're running late on the meeting. We have an
Yeah.
all-star team of administrators, and we're just adding 3 to our team. So truly, thank you for joining our team. Thank you for joining our family. We are excited to have you and we cannot wait for you to start. Make sure you resign right now so you can start as soon as possible.
Excellent.
Meg, you're not resigning anything. That was not for you. You're not permitted to resign. Thank
Well,
you.
we did approve his resignation.
And come on down.
Come on down.
We did approve. it.
Okay, the next motion will be a roll call.
Does he get
Um,
charges? He gets reimbursed for moving?
Yes.
Yeah, moving rate.
I buy him lunch,
Throw it a bus.
a lot of superfoods.
Is it a motion to accept the 25-26 proposed budget? Selecting something as a tax increase or decrease or nothingness?
We'll do the
Nothing is-
first and then-
That first one is
What
just.
do we do?
adoption.
The first is just the adoption and then we will get to the other, yes. So on, so we do not have to do a roll call on the first one, I believe.
Yes, we
We
did.
do, okay. All right, motion to approve the general fund budget for the 25-26 fiscal year in the amount of $212,034,500 as posted and advertised in accordance with the law and in accordance with the recommendation of the Finance Committee. The general fund budget includes funds from state and federal governments in addition to the taxes hereafter levied after proper additions and amendments.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
So what are we voting on now? We're voting on.
Voting 212,000.
Just the budget, but not
How
the
we're gonna
tax.
pay for it.
Yeah.
It's just the budget.
Just the
Not
budget.
just the
that's what
budget.
we're paying for.
Okay, all right, so we'll do a roll call.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
I just have a question. I apologize if I,
The guy with the blue blazer.
He's
Yeah.
gone.
we have it listed in the amount of the previous amount that was presented to us at $212,034.50.
12 million.
Or 12 million, oh my gosh, that'd be great. But we-
214.
So this needs to be changed.
Yeah.
The motion needs to be changed then.
Yeah.
I'd like to amend the motion to read $214,028,000.
Accept that.
Second. Okay.
Let's, because it's the budget, the technically precise.
Okay.
Jason moved to amend, I believe
I
that
approved.
seconded
I
that
did.
amendment. Let's vote on the amendment, then vote on the budget.
That's a roll call. So.
Do we do roll call on the amendment? No,
The
okay,
amendment just was.
so for the amendment, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and now a roll call for the actual budget?
Debbie Kulik,
Yes.
Richard Schleman,
Yes.
George Andrews,
Yes.
Rebecca Bear,
Yes.
Ann Catrillo,
Yes.
Mike Catrillo,
Yes,
Jason Goldstrom,
Yes,
Keith Carcutt,
Yes.
Wayne Roman,
Yes.
9.
okay. Okay, our next motion, whoever makes the motion will have to include one of the four options that are listed there, and you see the listed below.
I make a motion that we consider the 2% tax increase for the upcoming fiscal year.
I second.
Okay, questions and discussion? I'm gonna start a discussion on. I mean, we talked about, obviously, we don't have to go over again the pain of tax increases. However, I just don't think 2% is, excuse the expression, like spitting in the ocean as far as what we have as a deficit. I would like to see us lean toward a 4% that will actually bring in revenue. I am so concerned about sitting here next year because we have a lot of ifs from the state. I'm not sure about what your faith in government is right now, but mine is very low. And I don't want us sitting here next year cutting anything for students, cutting teachers, making class sizes ridiculously large. And that all holds above here. If we do a 4%, which is not going to solve any of our problems either, but if we do the 4, at least we're bringing in more revenue, which will have more lasting effects there. And then hopefully next year we wouldn't need any tax increase. So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, I think, the reason I went to 2% was that it puts us where we voted last time, when we voted for 0, but with the differences in the changes, we've added more debt and at least this covers the debt, so I'm more for the 2%.
But still leaves us at $28 million deficit,
24.
24.
Projected.
Projected.
Projected, understood, but projected is That it's what it is. It's projected to be 24 million.
I'm not comfortable with that number. I just don't know if we're actually gonna see that.
Okay.
I don't. Yeah,
And I
Rich,
know.
do you mean that particular deficit?
that
Yeah.
particular deficit.
I, that's. Yeah,
And
that's
that's
why
why
I
I'm
said 2%.
Are you talking 2%?
Yeah, no, she's talking to higher than
At
that,
least talking the 4%.
yeah.
I mean, the discussion on the table is the 2%.
No, I mean, I'm looking at this saying. Maybe we shouldn't raise taxes at all. Like, I'm actually looking in that direction. I think there's a little bit of ambiguity in those numbers there that I don't
And-
see.
And I know it's
This is-
difficult too, because as you know, we said with the presentation, we struggled a lot with this because we've had ambiguity in numbers before. And. You know, this is my 6th year on the board, and I know Keith, you've been on a lot longer than me, and so has Wayne, and so has Rich and Jason, and we've never, ever seen. The deficit.
And a clarification, I would like to clarify publicly. It's been brought up that a majority of our increases for salaries. Yes, we did increase salaries, but that was to take us back a few years when we've asked our staff to take a cut in their salary because we were gonna have a major deficit.
And then we never
And
did.
we never had, and we had a surplus. And that was like, I think 3 times we asked them to do that. That's why we increased them in that one time. It wasn't just that because I know that sometimes it gets into the press that, oh, they raised, they gave this money. It was to make up for the loss when we had a surplus at the end of the year. And that's what I still have that, and I still feel that way. That we will find the money, and the difference between 0% and 5% is only a couple $1 million, people, and we're spending a couple $1 million tonight.
I think the thing that I look at is that increase that next year is only $2 million. It's,
Correct.
we're not looking at millions and millions of dollars, but there's something else in this budget that's just carrying other things with it, and I'm just not as confident that we're gonna see that expenditure in that level. I am concerned about the revenue side of it, but I don't, I'm not there.
So even if we forwarded the 24-25, right, rinse and repeat this year to next, we're at a $12.7 million deficit this year.
Right.
We are going to realize that.
I'm not sure I'm
Not yet.
comfortable
We don't know
with
yet.
that either.
Still project.
We've never realized the full deficit, that's the
So
problem.
you don't believe in any of that?
It's not belief, it's just concern that it's not gonna be that. And the reason we put that money aside money aside for a rainy day, this is the rainy day, right? And so I'm expecting that our state legislators are gonna come through and they're gonna get us the step up money that we were told that we're gonna, and if we get that additional assistance with the stacking, but not only, and also the cyber charter, that's gonna cover a lot of this, If we show even a 2% increase, what we're saying, it's gonna make it difficult for our legislators to go back to the House and the Senate to say, hey, yeah, let's give some more, if we're putting tax increases on top of the money that we're supposed to be getting from the state, they're gonna look at it and say, well, why are we giving you more money when you're raising taxes, right? So.
But I think a minor increase, which 2% is when we compare it to those numbers.
Right.
It's, for us, we're just being prudent. And it might give us that breathing space with all those other things to come in that would help us have that cushion that we talked about.
At least the 2% makes up the difference from what we were told last time, 212 million, to now we're being told 214 million. So at least.
Right, and it does, it covers
At least
that.
that covers that.
But
The 2% is only gonna give us, what, less
that's the
than
$2 million.
Less
$2
than
million?
$1.6.
Less than $2 million.
Last time.
The average household is gonna lose the $100 they were hoping for. And I know it's only $100. But for
That's
some
what they did
people,
most.
that's a lot of money, considering the fact that most of our municipalities that are not gonna get money back from the state, could not get, they won't, I mean, have raised quite a bit. I mean, granted, we can't make up the difference in the municipalities and the counties increases. I know that, but I just think we can do our due diligence and figure out where to get that money.
I'm just looking at when, like I had mentioned earlier, with the concern about the information that was provided last month with the information that's provided today. Last month, you know, we did vote on 0%. This month, I would be leaning more towards splitting the difference at 2%. Looking at what was projected to us as information about how much it would cost monthly for a Monroe County resident. Again, as you know, it affects all of us, so we don't make this decision lightly. I do not, I was looking over the numbers where we were last year at this time, and we didn't realize the deficit that we had last year. We're roughly at the same point again this year with a higher deficit. And as Rich said, you know, I don't know if necessarily we're going to realize that entire deficit as well. I don't know if I'd be willing to say 0%, even though I would love to, because even if we don't realize $24 million next year, it significantly decreases our general fund. And that's a concern to me. That next year, if we're looking at another $20 million or so in deficit, or even $15 million in deficit, and we're sitting at a $15 million general fund, then we'd be left with nothing. And I don't want to be in that position next year either. And as far as staffing and enrollment, Dr. Vitale can probably come up and give me the better answer on that. I'm not sure where the numbers come from. Again, this is an issue of information that's presented to us is different than information that is then again presented to us afterwards. But I was looking at that 5-year projection that was presented to us on staffing and enrollment. And it says enrollment is down 4.8%.
Since 2000.
Since 2019. And I went through all the board docs that are given to us every month with student population within the district. And in 2019, we had 7183 that was presented to us. We fluctuated up to 72, 72, 77. And as of today, administration student population of 7186. So I don't know how we've dropped.
Okay, and if you include these.
Well, no, that's everything. That's everything.
So no, that is
Include,
ESACA students are double counted in that. So if you're looking at just the enrollment report.
So the enrollment report that we've been receiving
That-
every month.
No,
Is not accurate.
we changed the enrollment report because you wanted to see, because it was a request of the board to see how many students are in ESACA. ESACA students in our SIS are labeled in their home buildings.
So we double count them. And so how many students are in a
I have 6, so for our enrollment at the the beginning of June, I have 6311 as our student enrollment. And what did you do?
So it's 900 students we double counted?
Let me look. No, it's not 900
we
students.
got
that we
27
counted.
slider schools too, don't we?
We're not
Well,
counting
those are
We're not
counted.
counting.
Those are different. I'm just talking about.
Sorry.
That's where we get the.
In that,
Slider.
you have all the charter schools.
Correct.
They are not our students.
But those are students we still have to pay for. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the number of students that we are paying for to be educated.
Okay,
Those students
so
are still our
that is not
responsibility
included
financially.
in this number. In this
Right.
number is just your actual enrollment of students in your
But
building.
not the number of students who are
This-
actually
This
responsible
enrollment
for
report
educating.
is different than the one you've had in the past in that it includes homeschooled students, which
Right.
we're not paying for, non-club students, and then your out-of-district placements, which you do pay
We
for,
pay
but
for it.
also the charter schools.
The charter schools.
Which we pay for.
Which we
Which
pay
we
for.
pay for.
Yes, but that is not in the enrollment.
But it is in the budget. So
But
we
the
should.
point of that chart is to compare student enrollment to in-building
Correct.
employee.
No, I understand that, but my point is that by saying we're 4% less or 5% less, we're still paying for those charter school students to go to school.
But my question is, so there's two different ways you can run this enrollment
Okay.
count matrix. until a few months ago, we were only running the students in our building.
Right, okay.
We changed it, so I'm asking you, the enrollment count matrix that you're looking at, that you gave me 7183.
So,
Did it have all of these other schools in it?
well, that would, I mean, this is before you. How did the previous administration present the numbers to us?
The one we have.
My understanding is it's
They
the
double counted.
previous, no, it's the previous way, which is the 6311.
Okay,
So to me, you're comparing just the students in seats in our district that we're educating, just those students with 7183 is what you said. I have it at this year, at the end of the school year, at 6311.
but we still have to
But that
budget
doesn't
for
include
those
the
students that are
I-
not in our.
All you, yeah,
Right.
you're just talking about this chart.
Right,
I'm
but-
not talking about the budget.
But
I'm
that's,
talking about
that's what
this
I'm
chart.
saying is that when we have to make our decision, we have to make a decision on all of the students that we are paying. We are budgeting.
Not disagreeing. You were
That's
just,
all,
you were
right.
asking this chart, and I think that we have to make sure that you're 7183.
There's the difference that we're looking at here is this number is total number of students in brick and mortar building as opposed to the number of students that we're totally budgeting for.
Correct.
They're two different numbers.
Excuse me.
So the
how
more
about- how
accurate
about the,
number
uh,
for
chart
us-
that we have at the end of the.
Well, that's what we're talking
That's
about.
what
Yeah, it says, so.
Right, so the accurate
Yeah, no,
number,
that's exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about. And if you look, it includes all the charter school
Right.
students
And non-public.
and all the non-pubs and all the home
What he's
education.
subtracting out.
Correct. But
so
that chart is different than what you've received years ago.
Oh, we understand.
so
that.
theoretically,
But when he looked up a number and he gave a number of 7,183 students compared to whatever the end of this is, 7,300 students. That you're not comparing the 2019 number he gave and this number, you're comparing two different numbers.
This
two
number,
different
this number is very
statuses.
close to what the number is. It's
well,
not
what,
the
what my
60.
concern is that the number that's being presented here is not the number of students that we are budgeting for. These are the number of students that are brick and mortar.
Correct.
And so when we look at a decrease in number of students, we're looking at a decrease in number of students because they went to charter school. But the reality of it is we still have to provide an education for them, and we still have to budget for them. So that's the justification for the budget increasing and the reason why we need to increase the overall expenditures of the budget. I don't want people to think that we have lost 5% of our student population and our budget has gone up, $7, $8, $9 million over the last few years.
Right.
We're still educating all of those students. We haven't lost the student population of 4.5%. They've just gone to cyber charters that we're not counting because they're not.
They're
brick and
still our
mortar,
students.
But we still have to pay.
They're
them.
tax paying,
So it was just,
they're still our tax paying students, 7,300 students.
right, and I just want the public to know that we are still educating all of those students and that the budget that we are voting on represents all of this.
And that accommodates those students as well.
Right.
Can we call
Any
for the
other
vote?
comments?
I just wanted to say one thing. As Keith brought up, $100 a household for the 2% tax increase.
That's what I was looking at, $97.
And so I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page, and now that reflecting, I'm not crazy about this language in the agenda itself, because you are voting for a 2% millage increase.
Correct.
That is not a 2% tax increase,
Correct.
because by the numbers Jim gave us, a 2% millage increase is a $12 tax cut to the median
Mhm.
taxpayer in Monroe and a $28 cut to the median. So I just want to be clear, you're not voting to raise the median.
So what would the
person's taxes
millage
by
rate
2%.
be
I can tell
in
you right here.
Monroe and missed that one?
Oh, it was in Peter's last month. Monroe would go from 31.05 to 31.59. And Pike would go from 126.5 to 128.38. And as Chris had pointed out, it is a 2% increase on the millage, not a 2% increase on the tax.
Right, so.
Right. Well, in reality, it is because-
1.67, Pike would go to 128.71 based
So-
on the budgets in front of us, not based on Peterson.
So
In
when did our
reality,
millage
So can you
rate
repeat?
Because
change?
if we don't do it, they have the money.
Well,
They'll take that money
So,
back.
So if you look at the actual budget that Jim and Joe presented,
What they paid last.
the millage rate for a 2% increase for Monroe would be 31.67. For Pike County would be 128.7.
How does the millage rate change if it's a static right now? How did one get a
I'm not
different
sure
number
if
than
the
the other?
answer.
Thinking it was
When
probably
you-
inaccurate in Peters.
Well, we'll find out.
because
My suspicion that we got new rebalancing figures from STEP. I
Yes.
don't know that, but
Yeah.
that is
Okay.
usually why it changes the time of year.
So basically, Chris, if I'm following, a 2% tax increase, really, if you're on homestead, is an $11 decrease.
From last year.
if you're on homestead.
So if you're on, well, if you're not, if you're not, you should be. I mean, you have every opportunity to be, so.
If
you
you're a
don't-
business, you don't get a homestead.
Well, I mean, I understand that. I'm talking about our residents. Our residents, if they're not on homestead, they've made that choice. So a 2% increase is actually lowering people's payment.
Correct.
Where-
Most of our residents, Mike, most of our residents rent. If you're a renting resident, you don't get any homestead.
I understand that,
And if that homestead.
but you
if
also
that
get
same-
any increase.
But and then the same building that is a rental, they don't get the homestead either. So really, it's an increase.
Right, but my point being here, a 2% increase is not increasing most people's taxes. A 4% increase is increasing it $4 a month. And I still think we're being irresponsible if we don't go to a higher than bringing in $1 million based on that. And I'm just,
But this is also based on the median.
it's median, I understand that,
And-
which means some will pay less and some will pay more. I get that. But I just think we're at a point here, you know, there's a reason that all these other municipalities have raised tremendously and 20-something% is because they can no longer operate their prices with the income and the revenue they were getting, because everything is going up. Why do schools have to be different? We can't operate what we're doing because we haven't raised taxes. Our revenues are down. We have to raise revenue, or else we're going to have to start cutting back on what we offer our students. And that's as simple as that. And I just think we're not doing it justice. So I would be voting no to a 2% for what that's worth.
Oh, then call for the vote.
Okay, then we'll call for the
Call
vote.
for the vote.
Roll call, please.
Debbie Kulik,
Yes.
George Andrews,
Yes.
Rebecca Bear,
Yes.
Ann Catrillo,
Yes.
Mike Catrillo,
No.
Jason Goldstrom,
Yes.
Keith Harcourt,
No,
Wayne Roner,
Yes.
Rich Schlemus,
No.
three, six,
is that,
six,
6-3.
6-3, yeah.
that's 2/3. So it qualifies.
Yes.
Okay, we're good. All right, let's move on. We need a motion to approve items A and B, but we do need to fill in some numbers in A and B. So just give me a second here to fill in those numbers. Okay, so in A, we will be filling in for Monroe 31.6700 mils. And for Pike 128.71. That would be an A. Anyone need those repeated?
Yeah, say Pike again.
Okay, we'll say Pike again, 128.71.
And what numbers, where are we getting those numbers from?
The budget,
From the
The
budget,
updated
the
budget.
updated
the
budget.
updated
That
budget.
Jim-
That's the verified budget from
Yes,
the
Jim and
accounting
Joe,
firm.
correct. So if you look in the budget under 2%, it's, and Attorney Brown has verified it, and Mr. Mirabelli has sent a text that is accurate. And that millage rates change because they rebalance every year.
And I do want to apologize.
Knowing what you're doing.
I do want to apologize. The information that was presented to me, Keith, when I gave you what the 2%, the information presented.
I'm sorry?
The information was incorrect that was presented to me, and the information that Dr. Vitale was mentioned is correct. Okay.
Thank you. Of course.
All right, so we filled in A, and under B, $776.91. Under B. Okay, does anyone need anything in A or B before we vote? Repeat it.
31.67 and 128.71.
You got it, correct.
And what was?
And then
the-
776.91. So now we'll go back. The motion is to approve items A and B with those numbers added in there.
We're making a mess of things.
Yep, hold on.
Okay.
Who's this from the thing?
So A little I is 31.67.
A little.
A little I.
Where we took
Pump
that?
that, pump that guy.
A little two is 128.7.
Okay,
So I think we're gonna hold back.
Okay, what's a?
What about
AA.
A? What about A?
AA.
A should be
Well,
2%.
2% rate
2%.
increase.
Oh, okay,
A
2%.
2% rate increase.
Yes,
That's
Yeah.
what you just.
and then we
voted
still have
for.
the 776.91 is correct.
That's what you.
Is Pike County's 2% also?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes,
theirs is based on
776.91
45% of the value.
is correct.
Okay.
making a whole mess. of
So
it.
before we start, we'll do it again. We are the motion to approve items A and B. A would be a 2% millage rate increase in Monroe and Pike County. AI would be 31.6700. And A2 would be 128.71. And then down in B would be $776.91. So with all that in place, we need a motion.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Please feel free.
I got my head wrapped around what you said.
Okay.
Offer public comment.
And now at this point, we also offer any public comment or questions. Anyone in person? Anyone online? Say, seeing none, we could go on for the vote. No,
Give us
hold on.
B and the.
potential public comment.
Okay. You have 3 minutes.
0% full tax increase.
No, rebalancing.
Perhaps our new employees could tell us 5 good things about you while we're waiting.
Especially if we-
Put 3 minutes on the clock.
Okay, look, percent rate and change, I got it. 2% for Monroe, 0.77% for Pike. Right? Percent change rate.
Yep.
Got it.
So we're just changing A.
I don't know.
Yes, A, the first blank is 2%.
Second one.
Is 0.77%.
0.
We all say I'm sorry to Patricia for having to do these minutes.
Okay, so we are keeping I and double I the same. And we have changed in A 2% for Monroe and now 0.077, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the B stays the same,
Yes.
okay?
But the mills you gave us are correct, 31.67 and 1.
The mills have stayed the same.
A is what?
Yes.
A is a 2% for Monroe and a 7.07, so points.
7.
0.77. I taught English. I'm sorry. 0.77, not 0.07.
I apologize, but you take like 5 or 10 votes a year that actually matter, and this is one of them. So
Yes.
we got
Okay. We got this.
Every vote matters.
Just recently employed disagree.
Okay, so I think we were up to the point of that we did no one public comment. And seriously, any questions since we changed that so many times from the board? Okay, then we would need a roll call for this one. Okay, roll call.
Debbie Kulik,
Yes.
Jason Goldstrand,
Yes.
George Andrews,
Yes.
Rebecca Bear,
Yes.
Ann Cottrell,
Yes.
Mike Cottrell,
No.
Keith Carter,
No.
Wayne Roner,
Yes.
Rich Lamus,
No.
6-3.
It's just-
Okay. Move on. A motion to approve the disabled veterans real property tax exemption as presented in accordance with policy.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the depositories for school funds for the 25-26 fiscal year as listed with funds invested in accordance with the school laws of Pennsylvania and the East Stroudsburg Area School District Board policy.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
Yeah, are those the existing general fund accounts
I just gonna ask the same.
that we're voting for?
Say that again.
Are those the existing general fund accounts that we're voting for?
Yes,
We're not adding anything or changing anything.
no.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to award items A through Q in accordance with the recommendations from the Finance, Properties and Facilities and Education of Programs and Resources Committee.
So moved.
Second. I would like to make a question, make a statement of question about B, 101,000. I thought that was like 50,000 a month ago when we talked about it at Property and Finance a couple months ago. Second of all, where in our board packet is the list of items and things that is happening? I think, we're talking about saving money, $101,000 for a sound system in this room that is sounding pretty good to me. If we're having issues in running the system, that's a whole different story.
It's not just the sound.
I understand, but I don't know what we're putting in because we didn't get a bid. We didn't get a listing. How can we prove something if we don't know what we're getting?
I hear you. I hear you, and I'm sorry you're elevated about
And
that.
and this is not like we've been talking about this for 3 months now. 2 months. So I think with the exceptions that we talked about 2 months ago for this and this is just this is $100,000, people. Every 10 times 100 is $1 million. We're talking about finding money. Here is money that we're going to spend. We don't know what we're getting. And my role as a school board member is to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayer and educate our students.
Did this go through 2 committees?
Yes.
So how come, I don't, isn't that the purpose of the committees?
I was on one of the committees.
But what happened on the committees? Then we didn't talk about, so this
We did,
showed up
but
on a
we never
committee.
got a
and-
listing.
But
All
I
we
don't
were told-
understand. That's where all this discussion
I
comes. So
understand
how
that.
did a committee ever recommend something to come here that they knew?
Why
nothing
I
about?
challenged the committee, and I'm on one of the
Well,
committees.
I would challenge the
I challenged
committees.
it that night, and I'll challenge it tonight.
I would hope that when we get something here,
It's all good.
that it's been discussed fully by the people on the committee. But if you're saying that two committees sent 101,000 and they have no idea what they're sending, that disturbs me because then we have a really bad problem.
And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
That's a
right.
serious problem on our board.
Too. It always goes to
moved to
finance.
But we always ask in finance, did properties and facilities approve this and do their due diligence to get it forward? And
Well, it was a vote, but the question is, the first meeting it was asked, and it was said, well, we'll talk about it at next month's meeting, and Mr. Brosh will come and talk to us about it. The next meeting he came and talked to about it, but we still don't know what we're getting. All we were told is that this equipment is, 15 years plus old and is antiquated. We use this room a lot and we need to have that money. But in a fiscal crunch, and we need to give programs to the students for 20,000 here, 20,000 there. We need to shave money somewhere, people. And here is a sound system. You all can hear me out there, correct? I challenge that.
So are you saying that we approve it with the exception
No.
of B?
Oh,
Well, I'm not saying that because I think it's.
If that's a
If he wants to make
modification.
it-
I mean, you could vote, we could take a thing to pull it out, but then, for that matter, the consumer math course, I don't know what's in those books either.
there's documentation here for that.
Every single one, I mean, of all the details of everything. When do we put some trust in the people we have hired in these positions?
I get that.
We have an AV person, we pay good money to, who said, this is what we need. We don't trust that
We have a
person.
technology person.
Then we have a technology person. So they're in charge of that. They're coming to us with the recommendation. We're not going to the math chairman and saying, how do we know Big Raw was the best book?
It
for
was
the
not
district?"
properly presented for approval, Mike.
I don't agree. but
I will just pop in here real quick. I mean, this is the bid tabulation. for the,
Page.
it's just one page. There's no descriptor of what was supposed to be there. So I understand Keith's frustration. We spent several months going over this. We asked for, bid item sheet. When we spent all the money at North doing the auditorium, they gave us a bid item sheet of everything that was going to be done. But we did ask for that several times. We did get this. And so I do understand Keith's frustration with just a price as opposed to what is actually being done. So,
With the
But we-
idea.
But Brian did.
but we did, right, and we did discuss it, but I can understand Keith's
And
frustration
we
saying
did-
that
we
there's
did,
nothing
We
listed.
also did ask for the sheet. with the-
And, but the committee voted it to come on.
Yeah,
So why, so this should have stopped in the committee. The committee should have then said, the committee should have said, we don't have enough information to pass it on to the board.
Well, I'm not.
I,
Well, we
well,
can-
then our committee, that was something with our committee.
Okay, and then
so
let me
where
ask
do
you
we
another
go with
question.
this?
Let me ask you another question, because I clarification, I don't remember seeing this either until tonight. On the screen, the projection screen for North High School, on page 3 of 6, we're paying $100 for engineering. Where's the engineering going? Who are we paying engineering to? Is that CHC?
AVT maybe?
No, it's
me
for, it's in the AVT bid proposal.
Okay.
The quote on page 3 of 6, technical services, we're paying $11,000 in technical services. The third item down is engineering for $906. What is the engineering involved? Is that for CHC?
Didn't be.
Yeah.
I'm
That
sorry,
is.
I don't know what
No, it
CHC
is.
is.
so why are we?
Do you mean?
I hope not.
It's on
I-
page 3, it's really page 4 when you look at the. whole-
It's the fourth, if AVT, it's not the first page, it's the third page, actually.
With technical services.
And that's, we're paying for expertise and setting it up
But-
properly.
Engineering for a projector screen, it's already there, we're replacing it?
We're putting it in an auditorium, right?
I'm sorry?
We're putting it in an auditorium, right?
Yep.
Replacing the screen that's there with a higher tech screen. I don't think we need an engineer to replace the screen. There's another $1,000. Folks, I'm not trying to be
But what- on
nitpicky.
what basis are you saying we don't need the engineer? How do you know that? How do you know we don't need that engineer to do that?
But
If
it's
that's
also-
what he's
it's a
recommending.
screen, but it's also a projector, right? So you have the projector, you have the screen.
We're supplying the projector.
Right.
We're not paying for the projector.
Yeah, well, that's fine, even if we're just, but we still have to have somebody set it up so it's properly aligned, it's set up.
But we have an AV department to do that.
My question would be, why are we paying $1,800 for a project manager?
To make sure all the pieces work together properly. Here's what I'm gonna say, is like, we're buying these services, right? They can hand it to us and they can put it, they can set it down in front of us and we can have our staff put it together, right? But if something's not working, then it's gonna be a lot of this. It's gonna be like, well, they didn't provide us the right cable to go there and then. You don't want that. You
but
want
in-
somebody to come in, do the work, to get it done.
I get that, Rich, but in defense of my statement, when I brought up the sound system here, I was told that we have a department that has recommended that
And Brian came in and
It's,
explained everything.
and explained it.
Just
but he-
like we do in education.
Right.
with-
And it got moved on.
But he
That's
did, but I asked at that meeting to look at
Then
a
you-
detailed bill.
Okay.
Okay,
But if the
okay.
whole committee brought it in to us, that means.
But I mean,
we
that's
got
my
to
point.
keep
We have
looking at it.
committees that do, that's why we don't talk about this stuff at our board meetings, general board. Our committees do this, and presumably, if they're satisfied, they bring it on to the board. I don't.
See your point.
Motion to vote.
It's just.
Wait, should we call for the
Call
vote
for a
here?
vote.
There you go.
We'll do a
So-
roll call.
I call
No,
We need
there's
a
no
roll
reason for a roll
I
call.
need a roll call.
You wanna
Okay,
do roll
so we're
call?
going, I'm gonna repeat the motion to award items A through Q in accordance with the recommendations from the Finance, Properties and Facilities and Education Program and Resource Committee. We've already had a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, move on.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'll vote no on everything.
I'm sorry, I didn't,
I was gonna just, no, I'll just vote no. I'll
Okay.
vote on motion.
feel free. Motion to authorize the preparation for train and advertising of a bid for the conversion of the Bushkill Elementary boiler to liquid propane. The purpose of the bid is to explore cost-saving opportunities.
So
So
moved.
moved, second.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve quote 232-87141 with E Plus Technologies for $59,224.14.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the payment of bills and unaudited treasurer's report listed in the agenda for the 24-25 fiscal year in accordance with section 687 of the Public School Code, recent directives from the Department of Education, and interpretations made by the Auditor General.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any questions? All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion to approve the payment of the following CHA invoices and applications for payments for services rendered, and they're listed below.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the request to close the following student activity funds that are listed.
So moved.
Second.
Question?
It always makes me sad when we close out the class fund.
Yeah. Wow, 2018.
Really?
Well, 2022 was my son's year, and I'm like, oh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the following notices to proceed in accordance with the recommendations from the Properties and Facilities Committee and Finance Committee.
So moved.
Questions?
Do we second it?
Oh, did we?
Second.
Wait a second, I'm sorry. Questions?
Can I ask, what type of, this is for the building for the drivers up north?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it a separate building?
Mm-mm.
We're adding on to the current structure. We're adding a lounge on the right-hand side. And then we're adding bathrooms and storage on the front.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion to approve the resolution concerning the School Violence Protection Program grant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the purchase of 14 Point Security Inc. open gate metal detectors in the amount of $248,903 paid by the School Violence Prevention Program grant and $62,225.75 paid by the district contingent upon receipt of the grant.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
I just wanted to say real quick, this is an excellent, system that's being put in. Non-invasive, it's something that we definitely need, especially in this day and time. I will ask, I noticed that some districts made, students made, videos on how the process works and how it's incorporated. I don't know if maybe something that
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
kids would.
Yep, so if we're awarded the grant and we're deploy these, absolutely.
That'd be great,
Yeah, I love that idea.
because it's a really simple program for them, and so I appreciate it. Appreciate everything everybody did to get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Will these be used, at each, they will go to each school, 14, we have. Which, will they want, one in every building?
Entrances too.
I'm sorry?
Multiple entrances as well. So like the main north campus, you have the front entrance and possibly the back entrance as well.
Are they gonna be temporarily set up, or are they
No, they're-
permanently set up?
No, they're mobile.
The mobile.
I understand that. So we're gonna just use them on random, like poking them out, and we're gonna randomly use them?
I thought it was.
Well,
each
we have-
school.
I mean,
thought
we have
each school
14.
got one, and then
Yeah.
So
that was six of them.
every elementary school gets one,
Mhm.
and then every secondary school gets two.
Two, yeah.
And it's in addition to the ones we have, so we're not getting rid of the ones we have. So it's just going to make that process go faster and smoother.
Well, it's a whole different technology what we have, so
Way better,
it's way better.
yes.
I mean, it's not the Evolve system, but if we can't afford the Evolve system, this is the next
Great
best.
system.
Right, I mean, this is $600,000 less than the Evo
Yeah.
system, and that was for 10.
I know.
Kudos to Chief Mill for finding this and bringing this to us and
Mhm.
working with Angela to try to secure this grant, so thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank
you,
you.
and thank you for always
I think
coming
we-
up with ways to
we
keep our students safe.
That's
That's
Chief Mills to look at, did you, Keith?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
At
Okay.
Pocono Mountain, we explored.
right, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the purchase of 14 Apple iPads for use with the metal detectors in the total amount of $5,621.30 paid by the School Violence Protection Program grant and $1,405.33 paid by the district contingent upon receipt of grant. Excuse me.
Second.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the contracts listed for their specific services, rates, and effective dates, subject to the review and recommendations of the solicitor and approval of the administration regarding the terms and conditions of any final contract other than price or cost. And you can see there are a couple of pages listed there.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions on anything?
Yeah, don't we have our own
I'm
psychiatrist?
right about.
Maggie?
Do we have our own psychiatrist?
Don't we have our own psychiatrist?
No.
We contract with, we do not employ a psychiatrist.
What?
Not right now.
I'm sorry.
I thought we, at one time,
We contract out for a psychiatrist. We do not have in our professionals
I thought we
contract,
did at one point.
No.
not that I've ever known
Yeah,
of
we've
in this
never-
district.
not
We
that-
have
not that I've been around.
psychologists,
Psychologist?
not
Yeah,
psychiatrists.
The big difference.
There's a gigantic
difference.
difference.
That's why I was.
I just had a question too. Not questioning the cost or anything like that, but in other school districts who's had their prom at Penn's Peak, their max capacity, is that gonna be enough for our students to all be able to
right.
attend? Because other districts had it there and they had to tell students they could not attend because it reached the max capacity.
I'm being told that we have held it at 10 feet before.
Yes,
without
we
it.
have.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure because other districts in the area have recently had it there and the students were not able to attend because it reached the max capacity.
I mean, I know South had them there years ago and with the same whatever class size we had, I mean, it hasn't
Okay.
gone down much.
Just
I-
trying to
good.
make sure
I
that
mean,
we
yeah.
don't turn anybody away.
The drinks and.
Can we check that contract for there's a $26 per person drink package charge?
I saw that too. I was like, oof.
And it said beer soda package. We're not gonna be drinking, our kids aren't gonna be drinking
They-
beer.
Not to be drinking.
And I don't think soda is worth $26 a student.
And it's $48 for the meal.
And then the meal is
They
separate.
want to check that contract a little bit.
And then, and the other thing I would like to have administration check is the Kalahari contract is calling for one SRO or security officer for every 25 students. If we have 400 students,
No.
yeah,
Is
and
that-
it's $75
Okay.
per hour for their staff to cover it for us. So a 3-4 hour event is gonna be another $300 per employee times every 25 students.
We can't send our own SROs. It's got to be there.
No, they're allowing our own SRO, but
We have,
one per 25.
Yeah, which is.
I have a little bit more basic question and Ben's here, so that's helpful. Did the students decide they wanted to go there? Yes.
Yeah, they work with, typically they work with the advisors on.
Okay, so they actively selected Kalahari.
Yes.
And they know what it's going to cost per student to
I'm
go.
not worried about that. I'm not worried about
Well,
that.
they're-
Students and our advisors work on phones where they might have their phones and, where it's gonna be located, and about where it's gonna be. There's a little bit of window from movement of where it could be and when it could be. But yes, they work together.
And they wanted to go there.
They want to go to Cal.
And they're okay with paying that
Yes,
cost
it's
in their
different
prom
times, right?
fee, because that's coming out of the prom fee, correct?
Are you talking
The $17,000 contract, that's coming out of the fee that the students are charged for the prom, correct? Okay,
what they raise and then, what they would have to pay.
so they're okay with that.
Right, because they use their class money too first and. Okay,
And then I would just ask, if you have questions about these contracts, so that I'm not running through it, just shoot me an email when the agenda goes out so that I can have an answer for you prior to.
I'm sorry, I had a rough
No.
weekend and I didn't get a chance to, I would have done that, but
Not
had a
urgent,
long.
I'm just asking. If you have a
No
question
problem.
and you know it,
And I'm not pulling that out to call out anybody, I just noticed that and I just kind of scared me a little bit.
I think that comment was more directed at me.
$26. Drink.
How many hours, you gotta figure out how many hours it is.
I mean, that's even more than the Coca-Cola contract was gonna charge.
Is that?
I still have
Coca-Cola
until
or
July.
Pepsi? Are they serving Pepsi or Coke? Tell us, please.
Wait a minute.
Serving a treat.
A treat. We're going real elite, a treat. Okay,
Let's vote.
I forgot where we are. Did we do a
Yes,
second?
motion and a second.
Okay, in favor? Opposed? A motion to approve the contract with Scranton Printing Company for the printing of 7,000 copies of the Code of Student Conduct in the amount of $11,900.
I'm going to ask you to actually vote this down.
I was gonna say that we.
Because I would prefer not to print a section of them, maybe 100 copies, a few per building, but for us to release this digitally, but I wanted you to make this decision. So I do not think we need to print these anymore. We can print them in-house or get a small selection of them printed. There is no reason to spend $11,900 on this.
I agree.
And we need the
Agreed.
Colonial IU in their printing department.
I don't know if they can handle such a large document, but we are in the process of looking at it.
So
Use that.
your revised motion would be to approve printing of 100 copies of the.
Max, yeah.
So
Code of Student Conduct
my plan would be to do that in-house on our copy.
for each building.
No, not even for each building. My request is for you guys all to
Vote
vote no.
The vote no.
And then just allow me to photocopy these and print them or to look at the IU.
And they can be requested.
Yes,
On
absolutely.
request.
Yep, there will be a process,
good.
Okay,
How?
And then you'll get a digital signature from the parents on the
just like we do
acceptance?
now.
I don't agree.
And I'll save us
any other?
I'm not
20 grand.
not a good person for that.
Just suggest you do a motion to decline contract. That way
Okay.
You don't have to vote no, like.
Okay, so we'd have to change the motion? or-
Make an amendment.
Who was the maker of the motion?
Nobody made the motion.
Oh, nobody made
No one
it.
made the motion yet.
Just asking.
Well, thank you, Dr.
We
Vitale.
need to make the motion, we have discussion.
Would someone like to make a motion and change it while they're making
I'll
it?
make a motion to decline this.
Second.
Questions, and please don't ask any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you.
Want to do the same for the next?
No,
Motion-
this one we actually.
Motion
We
to
need this.
approve the contract with Sun Litho Inc. for the printing of 8,000 copies of the the calendar. That
That's
is like a
important.
hot item.
That's
And when those used to come in the building, you had to hide them and lock them away or they were taken. In the amount of $4,150.
So moved.
Questions?
So in there, hot demand,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
very hot demand,
What are,
yeah.
I like my calendar on my.
I
phone.
always like the calendar.
We all do.
I miss the student pictures. It was like a badge of honor as a child if you got into the school calendar. Do you remember?
Did you ever make it into the school calendar?
Of course.
You did. I understand. Motion to approve the event admission pricing for the 25-26 school year at North and High School South for the listed events as presented.
No.
Second.
Questions? All in favor? Opposed?
I got a
Aye.
question.
I'm sorry, there was a question.
It's cash still, right?
No, we have the apps
We have
too,
the
correct?
They can do
Is
both.
it, no, I have a question though, because we have the apps. Is it more if you use the app because of the service fee or that? Because I know last year that was on there.
There will be a service charge fee if you.
So this is the cash price, not the price with the app.
That is my understanding.
Okay. Given that piece of information, we had a 8-1 vote. Do we want to revote or are we good?
I thought we were trying to get away from using cash at the school.
As long as people up at North can get onto the internet to
Yeah, there's
use
no
the app,
service.
it will work. But many, many times you're on there, it does not work.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I thought we were trying to get rid of it.
Or
They can't.
have them
But what
purchase
I'm
in
saying
advance.
is We can't because there is not capability to use the app because people do not have phone.
Okay.
Or you can't connect to services up in North. If you, for Verizon, you can. But if you're AT&T, T-Mobile, whatever else, it doesn't work up there.
But if you try to push the app, why would we try to use it?
It's an option.
It's an option.
Yeah.
Okay.
people
the
don't break
enrollment
that.
report as listed, and then do we have a motion for
So moved.
adjournment, please?
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No question.
Oh, yeah. It's time.
Well, I've never.